Chapter 1740. After the metal stairs were shattered, the soldiers on the city walls no longer had any reinforcements, and they were quickly slaughtered by Qin's soldiers. Some people quickly gathered together and stood in the back of the alchemy army, bursting with powerful power. Arrays appeared one after another, and the broken metal stairs were mended in the center. The metal stairs kept extending. The metal stairs quickly reached the city walls, and the soldiers once again gave off ferocious auras as they rushed towards Qin's city walls. Great Qin's soldiers focused their attacks on the city refiner soldiers on the stairs. Cold lights flew out and arrows shot out, continuously killing city refiner soldiers. There were also some alchemy soldiers holding mechanical shields or releasing powerful auras as they waved their mechanical arms, blocking the incoming attacks and once again rushing up the city walls. The alchemist soldiers below also held their mechanical bows and continuously shot out arrows, piercing through Great Qin's soldiers' bodies and causing them to continuously die or die. Suddenly, a cosmos beast once again appeared in the air and attacked the people constructing the metal stairs. It swung its sharp claws, sending out sharp lights. This time, the soldiers guarding the city walls were prepared, and as soon as the cosmos beast appeared, they unleashed attacks. Countless sharp lights slashed towards the cosmos beast, causing wounds to appear on its body. The cosmos beast howled as it hid in the air. However, some cosmos beasts took this opportunity to come out and attack the people constructing the metal stairs. They vigorously swung their claws, and terrifying power tore apart those people's bodies. The cosmos beast once again smashed many people to death. Qin's soldiers once again focused on attacking the metal stairs. Soon, they shattered it, and many soldiers once again fell down. By now, many soldiers had started to quickly climb up the city walls instead of going through the metal stairs. They continuously used their alchemy power to leave a metal foothold on the city walls so that they could quickly climb up. Qin's soldiers threw out a large amount of kerosene and ignited it. Massive flames started to burn, and a terrifyingly high temperature spread out. Many alchemy soldiers were caught in the fire and screamed as they were burned to death. Regardless of whether it was the mechanical limbs or the alchemy power, they could all be restrained by fire. The blazing flames formed a raging wall of fire that temporarily blocked the numerous attacking alchemy soldiers. On the alchemy world side, seeing that they still couldn't break through Qin's defense, the patriarchs glanced at each other and sighed. They decided to retreat for the time being. If they continued, the losses would be great, and it wouldn't have any effect. Facing the heaven-awakened world's people, they felt quite shocked and felt that they were quite powerful and had many tricks up their sleeve. They had underestimated them. Now that he couldn't break through, he could only go back and gather more people to attack. In any case, he was fated to be here and couldn't escape. If other people knew that there were people from the heaven-awakened world here, many people would come. After all, this was a battle between worlds, and it was either you die or I die. Moreover, there were good rewards, so everyone was quite willing to kill people from the heaven-awakened world. After receiving the order to retreat, the alchemy soldiers let out a sigh of relief. After this battle, they understood just how terrifying Qin was. If they continued to attack, they did not have the confidence to survive. After all, Qin had more soldiers than them and had ways to suppress them. They had already suffered massive casualties. Looking at those who were pinned to the ground, as well as those badly mutilated corpses, this was the best proof. Seeing the alchemy world retreat, Zhao Fu slightly relaxed. He had underestimated the alchemy world this time. Even though they had made many preparations, they had still suffered great losses in the end. This proved that the alchemy world's strength was much greater than that of an ordinary world. Their main advantage was that their life force was powerful, and their mechanical parts gave them decent defense. Moreover, the Philosopher's Stone gave them decent power. This was especially so for those god beasts, which were quite outstanding. Zhao Fu had never thought that they would have such powerful defense. It would be great if they could be used by Qin. After the alchemy world retreated, Zhao Fu ordered people to clean up the battlefield and collect the spoils of war. Qin's soldiers were to be preserved so that they could be turned into ghost soldiers in the future. After so many Stage 2 soldiers had died, Zhao Fu felt quite pained. After all, these Stage 2 soldiers had been nurtured by Qin for a very long time. Even though he felt quite pained, there was nothing he could do. Right now, the alchemy world's most basic soldiers were Stage 2 soldiers, and Qin could not send Stage 1 soldiers over. If that happened, even more people would die. After cleaning up the battlefield, Zhao Fu ordered people to quickly build defenses. Zhao Fu understood that this was the alchemy world. This time, the alchemy world's people had not been able to break through Qin, but next time, they would definitely be able to gather more soldiers to attack Qin. If Qin did not respond properly, it was possible that it would be broken through by the alchemy world. Thinking about how difficult it was to deal with the alchemy world, Zhao Fu could not help but feel worried. He did not know what the situation was like in the outer world battlefield. Zhao Fu directly returned to Qin and went to the Heaven Spirit Steel. Now, Zhao Fu could use the Heaven Spirit Forum to understand the overall situation. Just as Zhao Fu had expected, even though Qin had been prepared, they had still suffered many casualties. One could only imagine what the situation was like for the others. Almost 70% of the factions had lost the first time they fought against the alchemy world. This was not only because they were not prepared but also because they were not familiar with the alchemy world. More importantly, the alchemy world's strength was simply too terrifying. Zhao Fu looked at the battles in the middle and core regions of the alchemy world and found that they were truly terrifying. If Qin went up, he would definitely be killed in an instant. Those regions were filled with saint beasts, and they were even bigger and more powerful. There were also all sorts of terrifying alchemy skills being continuously used. This was the reason why the Heaven Awaken world had failed, or else it would not have ended like this. By now, the entire Heaven Awaken world was on the defensive and did not take the initiative to attack. They first consolidated their bases and started to research and understand the alchemy world. This was the current situation. After looking at this information, Zhao Fu could not help but feel even more worried. It seemed that he had to make preparations to leave the Heaven Awaken world, as the Heaven Awaken world really might be destroyed. When that time came, he did not dare to imagine what would happen to the Heaven Awaken world. When that time came, Qin could only enter the boundless void to protect his legacy and his people. Chapter 1741. After this battle, the alchemy world would not attack for a while. Qin only needed to continue building defenses. Zhao Fu did not stay in the alchemy world, and instead participated in the research of the Philosopher's Stone. If he did not understand the Philosopher's Stone, he would not be able to obtain an absolute advantage. This was a war in another world, and when facing immense danger, only with an absolute advantage would he be able to guarantee his safety. Zhao Fu did not want today's events to happen again. After arriving at the research facility, the scholars began to research the Philosopher's Stone. They first attempted to decompose the Philosopher's Stone and start their research from the basic particles. A black Philosopher's Stone was currently floating in the air, and there was a decomposition magic formation below it that continuously disintegrated the Philosopher's Stone. The particles were continuously decomposed and collected by the scholars. "Greetings, Your Majesty." When the scholars saw Zhao Fu arrive, they stopped what they were doing and respectfully saluted him. Zhao Fu nodded and said to Bai Shan, "How is the research going? Have you found the method to form the Philosopher's Stone and its weakness?" Bai Shan said apologetically, "Your Majesty, we have temporarily researched how the Philosopher's Stone is formed, and we have already grasped the principles behind it. However, we need to rely on alchemy power to use it. We cannot use other powers to form the Philosopher's Stone. As for the other aspects, we have not researched them yet. However, we are already preparing various measures, and we will have results after some time. Zhao Fu nodded and said, "In that case, tell me how the Philosopher's Stone is formed." Bai Shan gave a detailed explanation to Zhao Fu, and he even brought Zhao Fu to the side to demonstrate. There was an alchemy formation on the ground, and it was filled with alchemy stones. These alchemy stones contained alchemy power, and they were used by the alchemy race to cultivate. There was a youth standing at the side. He was one of the people who had surrendered to Qin, and his name was Mu Shi. Bai Shan said, "Mu Shi, demonstrate to His Majesty how the Philosopher's Stone is formed." Hearing that, the wooden snake went in front of the array and half crouched down. It pressed a hand on the array and a formidable power burst out and poured into the array. The alchemy array emitted a strong light, and the surrounding alchemy stones emitted alchemy power, which floated into the array and condensed above the center of the array. The alchemy power first turned into a fog ball, then began to condense into a solid object, and finally became a white mechanical metal ball. Bai Shan explained by the side, "Your Majesty, alchemy power is a kind of creation, life, and metal fusion power. This is the foundation of the Philosopher's Stone, and the composition of the Philosopher's Stone is related to the 24 alchemy runes. These 24 alchemy runes represent all kinds of different attributes and powers. They gather alchemy power to form the Philosopher's Stone. Thus, the Philosopher's Stone in the alchemy world has 24 attributes." Zhao Fu earnestly asked, "What are the 24 types of runes and attributes?" Bai Shan answered, "They are extreme yang, extreme yang gold, yang wood, yang water, yang fire, yang earth, yang wind, yang thunder, yang ice, yang time, yang void, void. In the alchemy world, all attributes are divided into yin and yang, which contain the mysteries of alchemy. With our current abilities, we can only have a rough understanding of alchemy and are unable to truly understand it." Zhao Fu sank into contemplation after hearing Bai Shan's explanation. The 8 forbidden blood art contains creation and life power. It only lacks metal power. If we have metal power and control the 24 types of alchemy runes, we should be able to create the Philosopher's Stone with our own abilities. Now, we should first search for metal power, as well as the usage of those 24 types of alchemy runes. After thinking about it, Zhao Fu said, "You don't need to worry about fusing the Philosopher's Stone. Instead, we need to research the weaknesses of the Philosopher's Stone and the weaknesses of alchemy." Bai Shan understood and nodded. Now that Zhao Fu understood the principles behind the Philosopher's Stone, he started to look for ways to obtain powerful metal power. Now, Zhao Fu had many terrifying powers, but he did not have powerful metal power. Now that the alchemy battlefield had been opened, the surroundings fell into a state of calm. There was no longer any tension, nor was there an oppressive atmosphere. The Alliance, Devil Horn, and Second Wind God all turned their attention to the alchemy world. The other places were the same, and the entire Heaven Awakened world became much quieter because no one wanted to be punished. Zhao Fu was quite happy to see this, as the alchemy world did not have enough soldiers. They could be attacked at any moment, and now that the alchemy world did not have enough soldiers, Great Qin could send some soldiers to reinforce the alchemy world. Zhao Fu first sent people to search for powerful metal-type treasures. The fastest and most direct way to obtain powerful metal power was to fuse that treasure into one's body and obtain metal power. Soon, Zhao Fu was pleasantly surprised. In the Green Province domain, which was next to the ancient Stem domain, there was a forbidden region called the Metal Region. Not only was there a large amount of metal, but there were also countless metal-devouring beasts. These metal-devouring beasts contained a type of metal-devouring power, which was a type of metal power and could counter other types of metal power. If he fused them with the Philosopher's Stone's power, there might be unexpected effects. Naturally, Zhao Fu was not interested in ordinary metal-devouring beasts, and Zhao Fu was interested in the metal-devouring beast king. It had king-grade metal-devouring power, which was even more powerful than ordinary metal-devouring beasts. After hearing about this, Zhao Fu immediately left and did not bring anyone with him. With his nation armament, he would not encounter too many dangers in the outer domains. Half a day later, Zhao Fu arrived at the forbidden area. There were no plants here, and the mountains, ground, and boulders were all made of a light yellow metal. There were holes of various sizes all around them, and they were filled with teeth, looking quite terrifying. Zhao Fu looked at the forbidden area, and he looked at Zhao Fu. At that moment, some creatures that looked like pangolins ran out of the holes. They were as big as dogs and had yellow scales. However, their eyes were white and they had extremely sharp teeth that gave off cold light. They were metal-devouring beasts. Zhao Fu did not pay much attention to these ordinary metal-devouring beasts and turned into a ray of light as he went to the depths of the forbidden region. These metal-devouring beasts like to hide in holes, so Zhao Fu took out the emperor-killing sword and lightly harumphed, "Sword Master." Chapter 1742. Xing. Zhao Fu vigorously slashed out, and a massive sword light containing terrifying power slammed into the metal ground, causing sparks to fly everywhere and rocks to fly everywhere. A 1,000-meter long and hundreds of meters deep sword gash appeared on the ground. Roar! A furious roar sounded out from beneath the ground, causing the ground to violently tremble. A metal-devouring beast covered in golden scales that was thousands of meters long burst out from underground, and it savagely looked at Zhao Fu. Swish! The metal-devouring beast exploded out with terrifying power and opened its mouth, shooting out a golden ray of light. The golden ray of light contained incredibly sharp power as it quickly flew towards Zhao Fu, seeming to be able to cut apart everything. Zhao Fu stretched out his hand and a black energy barrier appeared, covering his entire body. Xing, 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 the massive golden ray of light gave off immense power as it slammed into the defensive barrier. The rays of light were like large sabers as they slashed against the defensive barrier, causing massive sounds to ring out. After the golden ray of light disappeared, there were deep gashes on Zhao Fu's defensive barrier, and it seemed that it had almost broken through Zhao Fu's defensive barrier. Looking at the metal-devouring Beast King's power, Zhao Fu gave a pleased smile. The metal-devouring Beast King looked quite startled. It had never thought that its powerful attack would not be able to break through Zhao Fu's defensive barrier. Zhao Fu did not wait for it to react, and he rushed up and slashed out. A massive sword light slammed into the metal-devouring Beast King's body, resulting in a metallic clang. The metal-devouring Beast King's scales were like countless tough scales. However, Zhao Fu had still managed to leave a gash, and golden blood flowed out of the wound. The metal-devouring Beast King raised its head and gave a pained roar. Countless sounds sounded out as metal-devouring beasts crawled out of the ground, densely surrounding Zhao Fu and Zhao Fu. Swish, 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 the metal-devouring beasts gave off a wave of power as they opened their mouths and small golden rays of light shot towards Zhao Fu. They were incredibly fast and there were many of them, making them look like golden raindrops. Facing the countless motes of light, Zhao Fu did not feel any fear and directly used his nation armament's power. A terrifying power exploded out, causing space to twist. At the same time, a massive aura spread out, bringing with it a wild gale and causing the heavens and earth to dim. He stretched out a hand and a powerful force surged out, forming a huge black energy barrier. It carried an incomparably sturdy aura. Bang bang bang. The golden specks of light collided with the black energy shield, producing loud bangs before turning into countless specks of light and dissipating. The black energy shield wasn't damaged in the slightest. After the countless rays of golden light scattered, Zhao Fu waved his hand and dispelled the black energy barrier. He looked down at the densely packed metal-devouring beasts below and gave a cold smile as he stretched out a hand, sending out a terrifying wave of power. Countless black motes of light gathered, forming black swords of light. There were many of them, and they all pointed downwards, giving off an incredibly sharp aura. Zhao Fu stretched out his hand and pressed downwards. Clang, 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 the black swords of light gave off immense power as they flew towards the ground, piercing through the metal-devouring beasts' bodies. Blood continuously flew everywhere, and pained cries continuously sounded out. The blood dyed the ground red, and a dense stench of blood filled the air. A large number of metal-devouring beasts died on the ground, and seeing this, the metal-devouring beasts on the outskirts were so scared that they immediately ran back into their caves. They moved incredibly quickly, not daring to stay for even a moment. The metal-devouring beast king had also been attacked, and bloody holes appeared on its body. Blood continuously flowed out, and it looked quite terrified. It understood that it was not a match for Zhao Fu, so it wanted to dig into the ground and escape. Zhao Fu disdainfully laughed and vigorously grabbed out with his hand. Clang, 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 massive chains containing ferocious power shot out from the ground, quickly binding up the metal-devouring Beast King's body. The metal-devouring Beast King vigorously struggled, using its sharp mouth to bite down on the chains. Its mouth was quite shocking, and it was actually able to bite through the chains. However, even though the metal-devouring Beast King could quickly bite through the chains, there were many places where it could not bite, so it was unable to escape. Zhao Fu flew in front of the metal-devouring Beast King, and it looked at Zhao Fu in fury and fear as it continuously struggled. Looking at the metal-devouring Beast King, Zhao Fu smiled and said, "Your power is quite good, it's mine now." Hearing Zhao Fu's words, the metal-devouring Beast King felt an intense sense of danger, and it desperately struggled as it tried to bite Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu did not mind and stretched out his hand towards the metal-devouring Beast King. A wave of power flowed out from his palm, forming a 2-meter-wide black hole. Massive pale white roots shot out from the hole, piercing into the metal-devouring Beast King's body and wrapping around it. Roar! 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 The metal-devouring Beast King continuously howled and struggled, but it was unable to break free from the chains and the massive roots. Zhao Fu wanted to devour the metal-devouring Beast King's power, so he used the evil spirit Abyss Flower's power. It could digest the metal-devouring Beast King's power and turn it into pure power that flowed into Zhao Fu's body. Zhao Fu closed his eyes and absorbed the powerful metal energy, fusing it into his bones, causing them to give off a metallic luster. The metal-devouring Beast King's howls became weaker and weaker before it died. Its body withered before turning into dust and dissipating. After Zhao Fu finished absorbing the massive amount of metal energy, his bones gave off a golden light as if they were made of gold. After absorbing this massive amount of metal energy, not only did Zhao Fu's power increase, but it also caused Zhao Fu's defense to become stronger. Now, Zhao Fu had obtained a new ability, which was to turn his body into metal. It was as if he was made out of metal, and this was different to alchemy's metal mechanization. At the same time, this powerful metal energy caused Zhao Fu's bones to have a type of spirituality. Zhao Fu felt quite surprised. His blood contained a powerful water spirit, his body contained a powerful wood spirit, and his bones contained a shocking metal spirit. What would happen if he fused the 5 elements into his body? Zhao Fu suddenly had a bold idea. Currently, Zhao Fu still had 3 race Emperor stars that he had not awakened, and the spirit race's supreme Emperor star was one of them. Zhao Fu had not found a way to awaken the spirit race's Emperor star yet, and perhaps this method would be an opportunity. Of course, he definitely would not be able to obtain the Supreme Emperor star just by fusing the 5 elements, as that would be too simple. As such, this was just an opportunity. After obtaining the powerful metal energy, Zhao Fu immediately returned to Qin City to complete the next step, which was fusing the 24 refinement runes. Chapter 1744. Zhao Fu walked into the alchemy formation. A young man tied to a pillar looked furious as he yelled, "Who are you? Why did you capture us? A beautiful girl fearfully said, Don't kill me, I beg you. You can ask my family for anything you want. My family will definitely give it to you. I beg you, I don't want to die. A robust youth had a hateful expression as he loudly cursed, You bastard, you killed my loved one. I'll definitely kill you and tear you to pieces so that you'll never be able to reincarnate. A beautiful and graceful woman also hatefully looked at Zhao Fu and said, You killed my loved one, I curse you to die a miserable death. I curse everyone around you to die a miserable death, ha ha. Zhao Fu stood at the center, expressionlessly pouring power into the ground. That array emitted an intense light, and a huge amount of alchemy power quickly converged in the surroundings. Everyone was stunned. They hadn't expected that a heaven-awakened realm powerhouse like Zhao Fu could actually use alchemy power, and it seemed very powerful. The power Zhao Fu was using was a kind of alchemy power formed from the fusion of the 8 forbidden blood art and metal-devouring power. This kind of alchemy power was somewhat similar, but it wasn't the true alchemy power because it hadn't fused the 24 runes yet. It was now time to fuse the 24 runes. Zhao Fu extended a hand and softly shouted, 8 forbidden blood art. A huge amount of blood-colored power surged out and formed 24 spheres of light around Zhao Fu's palm. Zhao Fu kept pouring power into them, and those 24 spheres of light started crystallizing into 24 blood-colored crystals. A huge aura spread out. Zhao Fu pressed his hand down, and those 24 blood-colored crystals turned into blood-colored rays of light that entered the bodies of the 24 people. Zhao Fu extended his hand and forcefully grabbed. Aya! Pained cries sounded out as countless traces of blood-red light came from the 24 people's bodies. Those people felt immense pain and howled as they continuously struggled, but they were tied to the pillars and could not break free. Those people quickly aged, and their hair quickly turned white. Many wrinkles appeared on their faces, and they let out a final scream before dying. Their bodies turned into dust and dissipated. Only 24 blood-colored flames were left floating in the air. Zhao Fu made a grabbing motion, and the 24 blood-colored flames quickly floated into Zhao Fu's body. After absorbing the blood-colored flames, Zhao Fu sat cross-legged in the array and closed his eyes to start fusing with their bloodlines. The surrounding alchemy power kept pouring into Zhao Fu's body. Zhao Fu absorbed the alchemy power while fusing the blood-red flames into his blood vessels. After an unknown amount of time, Zhao Fu's body kept emitting the aura of the metal refiner race. The sky suddenly darkened, and countless black clouds converged. A terrifying aura spread out, and the surroundings also felt oppressive. Zhao Fu ultimately completely fused with those flames, and at the same time, he absorbed a large amount of alchemy power and started nurturing his own 24 kinds of runes. The black clouds in the sky already covered the sky, and silver arcs of lightning flickered, carrying a destructive aura that made people's hair stand on end. Zhao Fu also slowly opened his eyes and looked at the sky. Rumble! Thunder continuously sounded out as bolts of silver lightning containing terrifying power blasted towards Zhao Fu. They were incredibly fast and unstoppable, and no one could stop them. But Zhao Fu didn't resist and allowed the lightning bolts to strike him. Zhao Fu was borrowing that power to condense his own runes. Lightning bolts kept striking Zhao Fu's body, and silver arcs of lightning kept appearing around Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu absorbed the lightning power, and at the same time, a trace of blood leaked out of the corner of his mouth. Enduring such powerful lightning was quite harmful to Zhao Fu. But it was all worth it. Countless arcs of lightning burst out of Zhao Fu's body, and they wreaked havoc in the surroundings like silver snakes. It was a shocking scene. A silver rune giving off small arcs of lightning appeared. This was the first lightning rune that had been condensed, and it was a yang lightning rune. With this start, Zhao Fu grasped the principles behind runes, and a powerful aura exploded out as a second black rune giving off small arcs of lightning appeared. The first yang lightning rune carried the power of divine punishment and belonged to the yang attribute. The second rune was fused with Zhao Fu's terrifying destruction power. This was a darkness attribute and belonged to the Yin attribute, so the second rune was of the Yin attribute. The power represented by the two kinds of lightning runes was far more powerful than the runes controlled by ordinary alchemists. Boom! At this time, a huge flame ignited on Zhao Fu's body, and the lightning in the sky kept striking Zhao Fu's body. Zhao Fu continued to borrow the power of divine punishment to condense a fire rune. It also carried the power of divine punishment and belonged to the Yang flame rune. A huge ghostly flame ignited as Zhao Fu poured the power of the ghost race into his aura, forming a gray rune emitting ghostly flames. This was the Yin flame rune. Rumble. Terrifying bolts of lightning containing terrifying power continued to strike Zhao Fu's body, and Zhao Fu continuously absorbed the divine punishment's power. Countless traces of sharp metallic aura flowed out, and a golden rune giving off a sharp aura appeared. Following this, a massive wave of devil chi flowed out and fused with the metallic aura, forming a violet gold rune that gave off dense devil chi. Rumble, the lightning continuously descended, and Zhao Fu continued to absorb it. A large wave of life force flowed out, fusing with the divine punishment's power, forming a green yang wood rune. A wave of deathly aura containing immense power flowed into Zhao Fu, forming a gray rune that gave off massive amounts of deathly power. This was the Yin wood rune. This continued for a while, and Zhao Fu condensed the 24 runes, which represented different powers. They floated around Zhao Fu and gave off different lights. Zhao Fu lightly shouted, "Fuse." The 24 runes floating around him turned into rays of light that flowed into Zhao Fu's body, and a huge wave of alchemy power burst out of Zhao Fu's body, setting off a huge storm that spread in the surroundings. The sky also suddenly changed, and countless black clouds condensed even faster. That oppressive feeling made it difficult to breathe, and a destructive aura spread out. Boom! Boom! Silver lightning bolts that were as thick as buckets, bringing with them the power to destroy everything, fell from the sky extremely quickly. The silver light illuminated the surroundings, and the power was terrifying. Chapter 1745. Crackle! The countless bolts of lightning slammed into the defensive barrier, resulting in massive explosions. The intense silver light was quite blinding, and the defensive barrier slightly cracked. However, it was still able to block most of the lightning. However, this was not the end. The black clouds in the sky continuously roiled as ferocious silver arcs of lightning flashed. A terrifying aura of destruction spread out, causing people's bodies to feel a chill. The sky was giving birth to an even greater divine punishment power. As time passed, the sky became filled with arcs of lightning, giving off a power that could destroy everything. Just as the countless bolts of lightning were about to descend, at that moment, Zhao Fu once again opened his eyes, which shot out 2 rays of rainbow light. His eyes seemed to become mechanical, and the defensive barrier around him disappeared. Zhao Fu stretched out a hand towards the lightning in the sky and vigorously hit it. Boom! A massive wave of alchemy power flowed out, forming an enormous mechanical arm that punched towards the sky. A terrifying energy blasted out, and the space around it seemed to be unable to withstand it and continuously twisted. Bang! The terrifying energy slammed into the sky, causing a massive explosion to sound out. It pierced through the countless lightning clouds, revealing the blood-red sky. It was as if a hole had been punched in the sky, and the gale brought with it by the fist swept up, turning into a powerful force that scattered the lightning clouds. The lightning clouds in the sky gradually dissipated, revealing the blood-red sky, and the oppressive aura also disappeared. The mechanical arm dissipated into traces of alchemy aura, and Zhao Fu smiled as he stood up from the ground. Zhao Fu had now successfully grasped alchemy power, but he had not condensed the Philosopher's Stone yet. This was because Zhao Fu's power level was too high and his runes were quite special, so it would not be easy for him to condense the Philosopher's Stone. However, if he could condense it, the power would be incredibly terrifying. His main goal this time was to understand the principles behind the 24 runes, and Zhao Fu had achieved this goal. This was his biggest harvest this time, and he could now start experimenting with the Philosopher's Stone in the Heaven Awakened world. After returning to the Heaven Awakened world, Zhao Fu ordered people to prepare various things. The first was to find 12 attribute energy stones. The other 11 attributes were quite easy to find, but the time attribute was quite rare. However, with Qin's current abilities, it was not too difficult, and they quickly found 12 attribute energy stones. Zhao Fu was currently carving out an alchemy formation. This formation was not a formation of the alchemy world, but a heaven-awakened formation that Zhao Fu had imitated. This formation did not require alchemy power, but it required heaven-awakened spirit qi. Now that he had obtained alchemy power and bloodlines, everything would be much easier. Zhao Fu held the 12 attribute energy stones, as well as a large number of yin and yang attribute energy stones. What Zhao Fu needed to do first was to use alchemy power to extract some of the yin energy from the yin energy stone and pour it into the 12 attribute energy stones. Zhao Fu unleashed his alchemy power, forming 12 silver energy barriers that covered the 12 energy stones. He then drew out a large amount of yin energy and sent it into the 12 silver energy barriers, creating an orb of gray energy within them. Although there were conflicts between attributes, using alchemy power was much easier to deal with. The silver energy barriers absorbed Zhao Fu's power and gave off a faint light. A wave of alchemy power spread out, and the energy stones started to melt, turning into 12 types of energy. Under the control of the silver energy barriers, the 12 types of energy slowly fused with the yin energy. There was nothing unexpected about this, and the process was very successful. But the appearance was a bit different. The 12 seemingly metallic stones had shrunk a bit. The original crystals were the size of eggs, but now they were the size of lychees, and they also had 12 colors. Following this, Zhao Fu used the same method and sent his yang attribute energy into the 12 crystals, creating 12 more crystals that were as big as lychees. Now, Zhao Fu was simulating the 24 types of energy of the alchemy world. Zhao Fu placed them on the array, and then went to the periphery of the array. He pressed a hand on the array and poured power into it. The array was directly activated and a burst of power spread out. The attributes placed in the surroundings emitted streams of energy that converged above the center of the array like a pillar of air. The energy gathered together and kept condensing before crystallizing into a thumb-sized magic crystal cube. It was emitting a white light and floated in the air, carrying an alchemy aura. Zhao Fu felt quite surprised. The Philosopher's Stone's appearance and power were different from the alchemy world's Philosopher's Stone. The alchemy world's Philosopher's Stone was metallic and spherical, while the Heaven Awakened world's Philosopher's Stone was shaped like a magic crystal or cube. Zhao Fu guessed that it was because the laws of the two worlds were different, which was why the items formed were different. Zhao Fu stretched out his hand, and the crystal automatically flew into his hand. Zhao Fu started to examine the Philosopher's Stone's power. He found that it was different from the alchemy world's Philosopher's Stone's power. The Heaven Awakened world's Philosopher's Stone's power was slightly weaker, and its power was not too mechanical. It also had a lot of spirit energy and had the power of an ordinary Philosopher's Stone, which gave it a special advantage. Overall, the alchemy world's Philosopher's Stone was a bit more powerful, but this was because it was not a pure power attribute or a magic formation. The alchemy technique was only at the initial stage, and it could be improved in the future. However, the successful appearance of the Philosopher's Stone made Zhao Fu feel quite happy. After all, Qin's soldiers' power would increase, and their life force would also increase. They would also have mechanical power and spirit energy. Thinking about it, the increase in power was already quite great. Once the Philosopher's Stone became common, all of Qin's strength would rise to a whole new level. How could Zhao Fu feel happy? Zhao Fu called over a soldier to test if he could give Qin's soldiers a philosopher's stone so that they could use it. This was somewhat different. The alchemy world's philosopher's stone was condensed by itself, while Qin's philosopher's stone was created using a magic formation. "Greetings, Your Majesty." A soldier wearing black armor came before Zhao Fu and respectfully bowed as he called out. Zhao Fu nodded and handed the philosopher's stone to him. "See if you can refine it and use its power." Chapter 1746. This wasn't because of the soldiers, but rather because the philosopher's stone was very difficult to refine. The alchemy power it contained wasn't an ordinary power, it was a relatively formidable power. The soldier bowed and said, "Your Majesty, I've refined the crystal." "I've already refined the crystal." Zhao Fu nodded and looked at the soldier to see if there was anything different about him. His aura had changed slightly, and his aura had become slightly stronger. Apart from that, there was not much of a change, and he said, "Use the philosopher's stone's power." The soldier obeyed and used the philosopher's stone's power. The philosopher's stone within his body gave off an intense light, and a powerful aura spread out from his body as a white aura flame appeared around his body. The soldier's strength had greatly increased, and some parts of his body had started to become more mechanized. His body was now white and it was a bit weaker. However, this increase in strength was already quite great. The soldier's stone's stage 2 to 7 strength was now slightly more than stage 3 strength. Adding on the special nature of the stone's power, the soldier was even more powerful than ordinary stage 3 soldiers. If it was given to people with lower cultivations, the increase in strength would be even greater. Thinking about that, Zhao Fu gave a delighted smile, and prepared to have his stage 2 and stage 1 soldiers try it out to see how much they would be able to increase their strength. "Pooh!" The soldier suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood and collapsed to the ground as he moaned in pain. The aura around his body disappeared. Zhao Fu was quite startled and did not understand what had happened. He went up and examined the soldier's body, and he found that the powerful alchemy power was harming the soldier's body. Seeing this, Zhao Fu felt quite confused. How could the philosopher's stone be able to harm the soldier so much? Zhao Fu stopped thinking and placed his hand on the soldier's chest. A wave of energy flowed out, forcing the philosopher's stone out of the soldier's body. The pain on the soldier's face gradually disappeared, but his injuries were still quite severe. Zhao Fu called over the other soldiers and had them carry the soldier away to be treated. Now Zhao Fu felt quite confused. The philosopher's stone's attribute had been changed to the heaven-awakened world's spirit energy, not the alchemy world's philosopher's stone. Why was it harming the soldier's body? Also, the people of the alchemy world had the philosopher's stone. Why didn't the philosopher's stone hurt them? Instead, it increased their power. After thinking about it, Zhao Fu found that there was a big difference, which was that the alchemy world's philosopher's stones were condensed by the alchemy world itself, and not by magic formations. The philosopher's stone condensed by both sides was different, and it was precisely this difference that led to the current situation. After figuring out the reason, Zhao Fu thought for a moment before calling another soldier over. He had him stand in the middle of the formation and told him the method to condense the philosopher's stone. Zhao Fu crouched on the ground and directly activated the array. Power spread out, and the attribute stones in the surroundings emitted energy that converged towards the soldiers in the center of the array. The soldier followed Zhao Fu's instructions and sat cross-legged on the ground, absorbing the energy drifting over and condensing the philosopher's stone within his body. Pooh! Not long after, the soldier spat out a large mouthful of blood and collapsed in the middle of the array, a painful expression on his face. Zhao Fu immediately stopped the array and went forward to check if the soldier's body had been damaged by the alchemy power. Zhao Fu felt a headache coming on. He didn't understand what the problem was. He had clearly told the soldier to condense the philosopher's stone within his body, but it still didn't work. he first called the other soldiers and had them treat the soldiers' injuries. Zhao Fu sank into contemplation. After this time, he was sure that the alchemy power itself was harmful to the soldier, because when the alchemy power entered his body would be injured by that kind of power. It wasn't because of the Philosopher's Stone. Wouldn't that mean that the Philosopher's Stone that he had spent so much effort to create would be completely useless? Zhao Fu hesitantly refined the Philosopher's Stone and fused it into his body, activating that kind of power. A wave of alchemy power spread throughout his body, but Zhao Fu didn't feel any damage. Instead, it was a very normal wave of power. Now Zhao Fu was even more confused. Why was it that he was fine when using it, but others were injured when using it? Zhao Fu suddenly thought of another reason. The biggest difference between him and others was that he had an alchemy bloodline, while others didn't, which was why they were injured by alchemy power. However, making Qin's soldiers also have an alchemy bloodline would be quite difficult. After all, the two worlds had different laws, and there would definitely be conflicts when fusing them together. They weren't Zhao Fu, who had the 8 forbidden blood art, a divine bloodline, or a massive amount of fate. Moreover, even if he made Qin's soldiers have an alchemy bloodline, if they all had an alchemy bloodline, they would be treated as traitors and dealt with by the Heaven-awakened world. However, in order to see if it was because of the bloodline, Zhao Fu called over the wooden snake, who had submitted to Qin. He had it sit cross-legged on the alchemy formation and absorb the alchemy power to see if it was injured. The wooden snake sat at the center of the alchemy formation, and Zhao Fu activated it. A wave of energy spread out, and traces of energy rose up from the attribute stones and gathered towards the wooden snake. However, after absorbing a bit, the wooden snake said with a troubled expression, "Your Majesty, this isn't the alchemy world's alchemy power. This is not the alchemy power of the alchemy world. I can't absorb it." Zhao Fu felt a headache coming on. This won't work, that won't work. Just what is the problem? Could it be that using alchemy power won't work? After a while, Zhao Fu still didn't give up and continued to research. After all, the Philosopher's Stone would be very useful to Qin's soldiers. Since there was no battle going on and he didn't need to worry too much about internal affairs, Zhao Fu started to focus on his research. During this period of time, materials were continuously delivered to him, and injured soldiers were carried out. Finally, 5 days later, Zhao Fu found where the problem was. Firstly, the 24 attribute stones contained his own power, and they weren't nurtured by the heavens and earth. They could only be used by him, and they were harmful to others. The second reason was also related to bloodlines. Alchemy power was inseparable from bloodlines. Bloodlines could make it so that alchemy power wouldn't harm the user. Moreover, having a bloodline would allow one to better control alchemy power and increase the compatibility between oneself and alchemy power. Over the past few days, Zhao Fu had found a way to resolve these two problems. The first was because of the attribute stones. Zhao Fu had set up 24 alchemy formations in the Heaven-awakened world and used heaven and earth power to fuse them into alchemy attribute stones. Chapter 1747. As for the second reason, Zhao Fu had also found a way to resolve it, which was to collect the soldier's blood and fuse it into the attribute stone, forming a special bloodline attribute stone that could then be used as the foundation for the Philosopher's Stone. As the Philosopher's Stone was being condensed, Zhao Fu once again had a soldier come to the center of the alchemy formation. Zhao Fu once again used the method of having the soldier condense the Philosopher's Stone himself, because that would allow him to display the Philosopher's Stone's power, and the compatibility between the two sides would be higher. The soldier sat cross-legged within the alchemy formation, and Zhao Fu activated the formation. A wave of energy spread out, and the attribute stones gave off a faint light as energy flowed towards the soldier. The soldier closed his eyes and absorbed the energy. 5 minutes passed, 10 minutes passed, half an hour passed, but nothing happened. After half a day, a powerful energy burst out of the soldier's body, causing a gale to spread out. A black aura ignited on the soldier's body, and his power rose sharply. After a while, the soldier opened his eyes and smiled as he said, "Your Majesty, I've already condensed the Philosopher's Stone." Zhao Fu gave a trace of a smile and said, "Show me the Philosopher's Stone's power." Hearing this, the soldier used the Philosopher's Stone's power. Alchemy power spread out, and the soldier's body started to mechanize. It was a bit deeper than before, and the alchemy power poured into his arm, mechanizing it. However, it was not completely mechanized, and there was still some flesh left. Even though it was not completely mechanized, he could feel that his power and control had become stronger, which was not a bad thing. Zhao Fu smiled in satisfaction and had the soldier take out the Philosopher's Stone. It was a lychee-sized black crystal cube that gave off a faint light. After looking at it, Zhao Fu had the soldier withdraw his body and check if there was anything wrong with his body. After carefully examining his body, the soldier confirmed that there was nothing wrong with his body. Zhao Fu finally relaxed and he smiled. Qin had successfully condensed the Philosopher's Stone, and it could still be used by Qin. Following this, Zhao Fu called over 2 more soldiers. One of them was at stage 1-1, while the other was at stage 1-3. Zhao Fu had them enter the alchemy formation and have them condense their own Philosopher's Stones. Half a day later, waves of powerful auras exploded out from their bodies, and a black aura flame appeared within their bodies, sending out wild gales that spread out. After everything calmed down, the 2 soldiers came before Zhao Fu, and Zhao Fu examined their strength. He was quite shocked. The person who had been at stage 1-1 had gone up by 5 stages, directly reaching stage 6-6. The person who had been at stage 1-3 now had stage 1-7 power, increasing by 4 stages. This increase in strength was quite shocking. If they relied on their own cultivation, it would take a long time for them to have such strength, but now they only needed to condense the Philosopher's Stone. No wonder the alchemy world's power was so high. Afterwards, Zhao Fu called over a few people with different cultivations: Stage 3, Stage 4, Stage 5, Stage 6, and Stage 7. Zhao Fu had them enter the array and condense the Philosopher's Stone. Boom! 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 Waves of powerful auras exploded out and waves of black aura flames burst forth from their bodies, giving rise to wild gales that spread out in all directions. Their cultivations had all increased by quite a bit. The person with stage 3 had increased by 2 stages, the person with stage 4 had increased by 1 stage, the person with stage 5 had increased by a bit, the person with stage 6 had increased by a bit, and the person with stage 7 had not increased at all. From this, it could be seen that the higher one's cultivation was, the less the Philosopher's Stone's increase would be. After reaching stage 7, there was no increase at all. Even though their cultivation had not increased at stage 7, that did not mean that it was useless. They still controlled the Philosopher's Stone's power, and they needed to continuously fuse with the Philosopher's Stone to increase its power. Suddenly, Zhao Fu thought of something and took out a blood god pill and gave it to the soldier who had just reached stage 6. This was the soldier with stage 1 cultivation from before. The soldier received the blood god pill and followed Zhao Fu's orders. He sat cross-legged on the ground and started to refine it, and a blood-red aura continuously rose up from his body. A few hours later, a powerful aura spread out from the soldier's body. Now, that soldier's cultivation had reached stage 1. Zhao Fu couldn't help but laugh in delight. A Philosopher's Stone could increase one's cultivation by 5 stages, and a blood god pill could increase one's cultivation by 4 stages. If someone with stage 1 cultivation used it, that person would immediately have the strength of a stage 1 soldier. Ordinary people could reach stage 1 in a few days, so it was almost negligible. With a Philosopher's Stone and a blood god pill, Qin would have a stage 1 soldier, which was simply too shocking. By now, even if Qin lost more Stage 1 soldiers, they would be able to quickly make up for it, greatly increasing their foundation. In fact, if Zhao Fu wanted to, he could even raise all of Qin's soldiers to Stage 1. Qin's strength and foundation were far more powerful than ordinary factions, and it was even more powerful than some of the royal kingdoms in the outer regions. Even though their basic soldiers were already at Stage 2, they did not have all of their residents at Stage 1 cultivation. Now that Qin could do this, the gap between Qin and the royal kingdoms in the inner regions had once again closed. Now their advantage was their basic Stage 2 soldiers. If Qin could also raise their basic Stage 2 soldiers, Qin would not be weaker than the royal kingdoms in the inner regions, and they would not need to fear any royal kingdoms. Thinking to there, Zhao Fu couldn't help but feel quite excited. Qin had only developed for 10 years, and it was already more powerful than a faction that had developed for hundreds of years. Moreover, the Philosopher's Stone was more beneficial to the weak than the Blood God Pill, but the Blood God Pill was more valuable. This was because the Philosopher's Stone did not have any effects on those with Stage 7 cultivation, while the Blood God Pill was effective on anyone, including higher beings. Now that the Philosopher's Stone had been successfully researched, if Zhao Fu wanted to increase Qin's overall strength, he would have to make the Philosopher's Stone widely available so that all of Qin's soldiers would have a Philosopher's Stone. As such, there was a problem. As mentioned before, yin, yang, metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, lightning, ice, and spatial attributes were quite easy for Great Qin to obtain, but time attribute items were quite difficult for Great Qin to obtain. Chapter 1748. At that moment, a soldier hurriedly came up and reported, "Your Majesty! The major factions in the alchemy world have once again launched an attack against Qin." Hearing this, Zhao Fu was not too surprised, as he had long since known that they would attack together. Moreover, this was related to Eternal Night's capture of those alchemists, as those people were quite important to the alchemist families. Now that those people were dead and their bloodlines and power had been fused into Zhao Fu's body, those families were naturally furious, so they had launched an attack against Qin in advance. If it was not for this matter, they might have had more time to prepare before attacking Qin. Zhao Fu did not hesitate and walked towards the battle gate as he asked, "How many soldiers are attacking this time?" The soldier reported, "There are roughly 600 million soldiers, but there are 3,000 Saint War beasts." Zhao Fu's expression was quite serious. Last time there were 300 million soldiers, and this time it had doubled to 600 million. Moreover, there were 3,000 Saint War beasts, which was 2,000 more than before. This battle would be even more intense than last time. After thinking for a moment, Zhao Fu said, "Gather 900 million Stage 2 soldiers, 400 million to reinforce the alchemy world, and 500 million to stay on standby. Also, gather some beasts." Right now, Zhao Fu did not want to reveal too much of his strength and methods. After all, this was a battle in another world, and he did not know how many enemies he would face. If he revealed all of his strength and methods, the other side would be able to gather even more soldiers and methods and break through Qin's territory. Before, Qin already had 500 million soldiers in the alchemy world, and with 400 million more, they should be able to deal with the situation. The 500 million soldiers on standby could also provide support at any time. After coming to the alchemy world, Zhao Fu stood on the city walls and looked at the alchemist army in front of him. A middle-aged man wearing a golden dragon robe looked furious and gave off a dignified aura as he said loudly, "Hand over the people you captured and I'll give you a quick death. Otherwise, I'll make you suffer a fate worse than death." The middle-aged man pointed at Zhao Fu and said, "And you? We'll take revenge for last time together, and we're now capturing people from the Heaven Awakened world to experiment on. You'll be a good candidate, so pray, don't fall into my hands." Zhao Fu coldly looked at the middle-aged man and said calmly, Anyone who dares to speak to me like that will not have a good ending." The middle-aged man laughed mockingly. "I want to see what a great Earth Realm person like you can do to me. However, I'm looking forward to seeing you kneel in front of me and beg for mercy. All troops, heed my orders and attack." This middle-aged man definitely came from a very large faction. His strength had already reached the extreme divine realm, and everyone else treated him as their leader. His name was Huogui, and his clan was the most powerful clan in this area. Originally, they did not participate in the battle against Qin, because they did not take Qin seriously. They thought that they did not need to do anything, and that a few clans could join hands and kill them. However, the result surprised them. Qin's side had successfully defended. They had also been invited to join in. Qin had also captured one of their disciples. They were quite angry because the entire Heaven Awakened world was being suppressed by the alchemy world. Everyone was talking about how to kill Heaven Awakened world people to obtain points, and how delicious Heaven Awakened world women's bodies were. However, someone from the Heaven Awakened world had snuck into their faction and captured one of their disciples. This was a great humiliation. Huogui gave the order, and the ground continuously trembled as 3,000 or so war saint beasts giving off massive auras appeared and pointed their massive cannons at Qin. Countless rays of intense light shot out from the cannons, and an extremely dangerous aura spread out, causing people to instinctively feel terror. Boom, 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 rays of terrifying light, giving off destructive power and an aura that seemed to be able to pierce through everything, shot towards Great Qin incredibly quickly and gave off terrifying gales. The entire sky was filled with rays of light, creating a shocking scene. Zhao Fu did not hesitate and activated his strengthened defensive barrier. Countless rays of black light spread out as a massive aura flowed out, and a massive and firm black energy barrier appeared. Bang! 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 Massive sounds sounded out as the rays of light slammed into the defensive barrier. A shocking destructive power spread out, and countless cracks appeared on the defensive barrier. Bang! A massive explosion sounded out as the massive defensive barrier completely collapsed, turning into countless shards and dissipating. Zhao Fu's eyes slightly narrowed. Because of what had happened last time, Qin's defensive barrier had become much stronger, and it was almost twice as strong as before. However, it had still been shattered by those rays of light. Not only were there more war saint beasts, but they were also more powerful. Boom! 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 Powerful auras spread out as 100-meter-tall holy light emissaries were summoned. Their bodies gave off intense white light as they simultaneously stretched out their hands towards the war saint beasts. Powerful rays of white light containing shocking power shot towards the war saint beasts. The white light lit up the surroundings and was incredibly fast. As they flashed past, they seemed to tear apart the sky and seemed to be able to destroy everything, and they were incredibly terrifying. The war saint beasts did not panic at all, and they gave off all sorts of lights, forming a massive energy barrier. Bang! 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 Massive sounds rang out as the white beams of light smashed against the defensive barrier with terrifying power, resulting in massive explosions. The energy barrier violently trembled and cracks appeared on it, but it had successfully blocked the countless beams of light. Ghostfire gave a trace of a smile and gave the order to continue attacking. Kill! The countless golem soldiers gave off powerful auras as they flooded towards Qin City's defensive walls, seeming to be unstoppable. Boom! 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 The soldiers at the very front once again took out spears, and with the momentum of the charge, they threw the spears in their hands with all their might. The spears shot into the sky and disappeared, and magic formations appeared as alchemy power continuously gathered in the surroundings. The alchemy formation gave off an intense light. Swish, 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 metal spears shot out from the magic formation, bringing with them immense power as they shot towards Qin City's defensive walls. There were many of them, and they were densely packed together. On Qin City's side, the soldiers raised their shields and walked to the front of the shield wall. A massive aura flowed out, and the shields gave off black light, forming a black wall of light. Bang! 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 The metal spears shot towards the black wall of light with great force, causing strong gales to spread out. The wall of light was extremely sturdy, and it blocked the spears. The spears were either sent flying or shattered, turning into countless fragments that flew out. Huguet did not mind this and smiled as he continued to attack. Chapter 1749. The surrounding alchemy power continuously converged and poured into the alchemy array, causing it to shine with intense light. Boom! 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 The ground trembled as metal stairs gave off a shocking aura and quickly rose up from the ground towards the city walls. Countless alchemy soldiers stepped onto the stairs and gave off ferocious auras as they charged towards Qin Town's city walls. Qin Town also pushed out ballistae at this time. Swish! 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 Sounds of the air being torn apart could be heard as bolts containing immense power flew out. They were like black shadows as they pierced through the alchemy soldiers' bodies, causing blood to splatter and countless howls to echo. Zhao Fu once again gave an order, and the holy light emissaries extended their hands and attacked the metal stairs. Boom! 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 Beams of light containing terrifying power shot out and hit the metal stairs, causing them to shatter and causing many metal refiner soldiers to fall from above. Qin Town had successfully repelled the first wave of attacks, and at that moment, the holy war beasts aimed their cannons at Qin Town's city walls. Boom! 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 Terrifying beams of light containing destructive power quickly shot towards the city walls, giving off terrifying auras. On Qin Town's side, shieldbearers went up and once again formed a shield wall. The shields gave off boundless black light and formed a massive black wall of light that blocked in front of Qin Town's soldiers, giving off a powerful aura. Bang! 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 The terrifying beams of light slammed against the black wall of light, causing it to start trembling. Qin Town's shieldbearers loudly roared and burst out with powerful power, causing the black wall of light to become much stronger. However, in the end, it was unable to resist the countless beams of light, and the black wall of light was shattered by the beams of light. The beams of light landed on the wall and gave off massive explosions. Some soldiers' bodies were directly blasted apart, causing blood and severed limbs to fly everywhere. Pitiful screams echoed out as blood dyed the city walls red. The metal stairs once again formed and extended towards Qin Town's soldiers. Many alchemy soldiers rushed up, and some started to climb up the city walls. Qin continuously counterattacked, shooting arrows that pierced the soldiers' bodies. He also continuously used heavy objects to smash the soldiers. Many of the alchemist soldiers also swung their weapons and raised their shields to block the incoming arrows. They either blocked them or sent them flying. However, the countless arrows still pierced through the bodies of quite a few people. The chaotic force within them quickly destroyed their vitality. Some of the soldiers who were hit in their vitals screamed and fell to the ground. Although the Philosopher's Stone could give them powerful life force, primal chaos power countered that kind of power, making it impossible for the Philosopher's Stone to display its effects. Using heavy objects to attack the alchemy soldiers climbing the city walls wasn't very effective. The mechanical limbs of the alchemy soldiers were very strong, and they could easily block or smash the heavy objects. Qin used the same trick again. He poured barrels of kerosene down and ignited them. The raging fire began to burn, and the scorching heat spread as if it could melt steel. Some of the alchemist soldiers within the flames screamed as their bodies were devoured by the flames and turned into charcoal. However, the alchemist soldiers quickly took out a red stone. As soon as the red stone appeared, it gave off a powerful suction force that sucked in the surrounding flames, causing the raging wall of fire to disappear. The many alchemist soldiers continued to quickly climb up the city walls. Soon, countless alchemist soldiers rushed up the city walls and started to fight with Qin's soldiers. The battle became even more intense, and the sound of countless weapons colliding could be heard. An alchemist soldier jumped down from the stairs and swung his mechanical arm, sending a Qin soldier flying. Another alchemist soldier stabbed out with his spear, piercing through a Qin soldier's body. Another alchemist soldier chopped off a Qin soldier's head with his sword. A Qin soldier roared and swung his axe with great power, splitting an alchemist soldier's body in half. A Qin soldier swung his large saber, sending out a saber light that killed another alchemist soldier, while a Qin soldier stabbed his sword through an alchemist soldier's throat. Blood continuously flew everywhere and screams continuously sounded out. It was utter chaos, and the two sides desperately fought, creating a terrifying scene. Zhao Fu's expression was cold as he stretched out a hand, and golden crystals that were 1 meter wide flew out from his spatial ring. They lined up in a row, and there were 99 of them, giving off a golden light. Zhao Fu vigorously pushed out with his hand, and the golden crystals turned into rays of light that shot into the sky. Boom! 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 Massive explosions sounded out as blinding golden light covered the heavens and earth, and an extremely scorching power spread out, seeming to melt the heavens and earth. Scree, bird cries sounded throughout the sky as powerful auras exploded out. Golden crows that were 100 meters long appeared in the sky, giving off boundless golden light. They were like 99 suns, seeming to incinerate the world. The water in the surroundings instantly evaporated, and the ground became incredibly dry. Countless plants withered, and the ground cracked. This was the product of the Sunblaze Emperor Immortal Formation, and it was formed by absorbing the boundless sunlight from the primal chaos world. It contained terrifying power. Arg! Pained cries sounded out as the countless alchemist soldiers under the light felt a wave of power corrode their bodies. They also felt an intense burning sensation, and they lay on the ground and started to struggle. This was because the sunlight from the primal chaos world contained primal chaos power, which countered the alchemist race's alchemy power. Some alchemist soldiers were directly burnt to death, and the water in their bodies quickly evaporated, turning them into desiccated corpses. The many alchemist soldiers exploded out with their power to defend against the terrifying light, and their battle strength fell. However, this did not affect Qin soldiers at all, as Qin soldiers had sunlight pearls. Using this opportunity, Qin's soldiers started to ferociously counterattack. A Qin soldier stabbed out with his spear, sending out a sharp spear light that pierced through an alchemist soldier's chest. Another Qin soldier vigorously hammered out, sending another alchemist soldier flying. A Qin soldier swung his sword, sending out a sword light that decapitated another alchemist soldier, causing blood to spurt out. Another soldier held a large saber and vigorously slashed out, splitting another alchemist soldier in half. Chapter 1751. Zhao Fu looked at the retreating army with a serious expression and did not look happy at all. If there had not been any reinforcements, Qin City would have definitely been broken through. Moreover, Qin City had 300 million soldiers, yet the result had been the same. Now that Qin City had revealed so much of its strength, the next attack would be even more terrifying, and they would have all sorts of methods to deal with Qin City. The next battle would be even more intense and terrifying. Thinking about this, Zhao Fu did not feel happy at all and instead felt quite heavy. Moreover, he had to quickly deal with the matter of the Philosopher's Stone. The situation was becoming more and more disadvantageous for Qin City, and there would be more and more soldiers attacking. Following this, Zhao Fu ordered people to clean up the battlefield, repair the defenses, and take care of the dead and injured. After dealing with these matters, Zhao Fu once again returned to Qin City and sent out spies to collect things related to the time attribute. However, the results were quite disappointing, as there were very few things related to the time attribute. Even if they could find some, they would only be small and could not be used in large numbers. Zhao Fu couldn't help but fall into a difficult situation. He had gone to great lengths to obtain the Philosopher's Stone, but in the end, he couldn't use it on a large scale. He couldn't use its full potential, which was quite unbearable. If he had the Philosopher's Stone, Qin City would be able to directly suppress the gold refiner race, and he would not feel too much pressure. However, without the Philosopher's Stone, it was possible for Qin City to lose against the gold refiner soldiers. The gold refiner world was quite powerful, and there were many things that they did not understand. Moreover, after countless years of fighting in the outer world, the heaven-awakened world had some understanding of the other world, so it was not as disadvantageous as it was now. Now that they were facing a pincer attack from two worlds, Zhao Fu did not know what the situation would be like in the future. Zhao Fu thought about it and sighed. He decided to put this matter aside for now and see if he could find any weaknesses. Before, Zhao Fu had asked Bai Shan to find the gold refiner race's weaknesses. After returning to Qin City, Zhao Fu went to the research ground. Currently, hundreds of scholars were busy in the room. Some were studying the bodies of the alchemists, some were testing the attributes of both sides, some were making potions, and some were testing the strength of the mechanical parts of the alchemists. They looked very anxious and serious as they did all kinds of things. The atmosphere was also quite heavy and oppressive. Bai Shan, on the other hand, was inspecting the testing process. He also had a serious expression and did not say anything. At this time, when everyone saw Zhao Fu, they hurriedly reacted and bowed. Bai Shan also rushed to Zhao Fu's side with an ugly expression and said respectfully, "Greetings, Your Majesty." Zhao Fu nodded and said, "How's your research going? Have you discovered any major weaknesses of the alchemists?" Bai Shan replied honestly, "Your Majesty, right now we are using various methods to test it, but there is not much progress for the time being. It may take some time before we can have result. Please forgive us, Your Majesty." Zhao Fu nodded. From Bai Shan's expression, he had expected this, so he said, "Tell me if you've discovered anything useful and how much progress you've made." Bai Shan let out a sigh of relief and started to explain things to Zhao Fu. The first was destruction, death, and fire. Alchemy was a type of power that contained creation, life, and metal. Destruction, death, and fire could restrain alchemy. This was the direction of the research, which was to use these three attributes to test alchemy and the Philosopher's Stone. In the end, the destruction attribute had the greatest effect on alchemy, followed by death energy and finally fire energy. The destruction attribute had great destructive power, and no matter what kind of attribute it faced, it could restrain everything. Qin City had not yet grasped pure destruction energy, so he used chaos energy. This power was a destruction and chaos attribute, and it was slightly weaker than pure destruction energy. However, it was not much weaker, as it had a chaos attribute and could be used to great effect. Bai Shan brought Zhao Fu to a massive iron cage and had the soldiers capture an insect and a gold refiner to bring them in. The bug beast immediately attacked the gold refiner, and the gold refiner could only retaliate. The battle between the two sides was quite interesting. The insect ferociously charged at the gold refiner, and the gold refiner could only use defensive methods. He used his alchemy power to create a metal barrier, but it was easily destroyed by the insect. The gold refiner condensed a metal sword and slashed at the insect's body, opening up a gash, but it was not very big. This was because the insect's carapace contained chaotic force, and it also grasped chaotic force. It was a chaotic life form, so the combination of these three factors greatly weakened the attack. Otherwise, if the sword had landed on an ordinary creature, it would have been quite heavily injured. From this, it could be seen that the Chaos World's creatures greatly countered the gold refiner race. However, Qin could only use some synthetic materials and could not unleash the power of chaos energy. After all, the Chaos World's power countered the Heaven-Awakened world. Zhao Fu wanted to use a group of insects to attack the Heaven-Awakened world, but Zhao Fu could not control the insects, and the insect's greatest enemy was the heaven-awakened world. However, this discovery was quite useful. In the future, he would be able to use the Chaos World's creatures to deal with the heaven-awakened world. In times of crisis, Zhao Fu could draw a large number of insects over. The insects had been able to enter the heaven-awakened world through the cracks in the underground historical remnant. Ordinary factions mainly used the war gates, and other creatures could not enter the heaven-awakened world through the war gate. Right now, Zhao Fu was still fighting in the outer world, and he would be of great use in the inner world. Now, Zhao Fu had another idea. If he could find a crack to the heaven-awakened world in the heaven-awakened world, he would be able to draw the insects into the heaven-awakened world. Seeing how the insects had ferociously attacked the gold refiner race, the insects did not like the gold refiner race and would attack them. That way, if he could draw them in, they would fight, and Qin would not lose too many people. However, this method was quite dangerous, and if he lost control, he might be attacked by countless insects and the gold refiner race. Arg! A pained cry sounded out from the gold refiner race. His body had been bitten in half by the insects, and blood and organs fell to the ground, creating a gory scene. Chapter 1752. Zhao Fu became interested because the insect had eaten the Philosopher's Stone. This was an item that contained immense power, and it did not belong to this world. If it was given to a heaven-awakened world person, it would not be able to use it. After eating it, the power would destroy their bodies, and they might even die. Their bodies might even explode. I wonder what will happen to the insect after it eats the Philosopher's Stone? Zhao Fu looked at the insect and waited for the result. 10 or so minutes later, Zhao Fu's eyes lit up. Roar! 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 The insect's expression became one of pain as it howled. It collapsed to the ground and struggled, and strands of red aura came out of its body. Zhao Fu knew that this was the Philosopher's Stone's power. The goldsmith had used this power. Looking at the insect in pain, Zhao Fu did not know what would happen next. It was possible that the insect would digest the Philosopher's Stone, or it would die. About half an hour later, the insect beast underwent a shocking transformation. Its carapace started to become slightly mechanized, and the insect beast could actually digest the Philosopher's Stone's power. Zhao Fu was quite shocked when he saw this. Zhao Fu had only guessed that the insect could digest the Philosopher's Stone. He had never thought that the insect would actually be able to do so. This was a shocking discovery. Bang! An explosion suddenly sounded out. Before Zhao Fu could react, the insect's body exploded, causing blood and flesh to fly everywhere. What was going on? It was clearly fine, so why did it explode? Zhao Fu went up and looked at the chunks of meat on the ground, which gave off traces of alchemy power's aura and the slightly mechanized carapace. This proved that the insect beasts could absorb alchemy power. But why did the insect's body explode? Moreover, why could the insect absorb Philosopher's power? Why couldn't a heaven-awakened world person absorb Philosopher's power? This was a very important question that Zhao Fu needed to investigate. Following this, numerous insects and Philosopher's Stones were sent to Zhao Fu to be tested. Zhao Fu personally carried out the experiments because if he could find the reason, wouldn't Qin be able to obtain Philosopher's power? Then, he wouldn't have to search for a large number of time attribute items. First, Zhao Fu forcefully stuffed a Philosopher's Stone into an insect's mouth. After eating the Philosopher's Stone, the insect immediately looked like it was in pain, and traces of alchemy power came out of its body, but it was not mechanical. Bang! The insect beast suddenly exploded, causing countless pieces of flesh and blood to fly everywhere. Zhao Fu raised his energy barrier to block the pieces of flesh and blood that flew towards him, and his expression became somewhat puzzled. That insect seemed to be able to absorb some alchemy power before exploding. It couldn't absorb too much. Was it because he was too strong? Thinking to there, Zhao Fu ordered the soldiers to catch a stage 3 insect and feed it a sage stone. After eating the sage stone, the insect also seemed to be in great pain and fell to the ground, struggling as it howled. Traces of alchemy power came out of its body, and its carapace started to mechanize. It was even more powerful than the first insect, but the insect continued to howl in pain for half an hour. Even though it didn't explode, the insect died from the pain and lay on the ground, not moving. The alchemy aura around its body also dissipated. What was going on? Zhao Fu felt a slight headache. He felt that he needed some specialized people to do research, and ordinary people wouldn't be able to handle it. However, now that things had come to this, Zhao Fu wouldn't give up so easily. He waved his hand, and a sword light slashed out, opening up the insect's corpse and taking out the sage stone that it had eaten. The sage stone had been as big as a lychee, but now it had shrunk a bit. It could be seen that the Chaos World's creatures could digest the sage stone. However, it was possible that the alchemy power was very harmful to the insect's body, which was why it had died. Could it be that alchemy power couldn't be used by people from other worlds? Qin had only imitated it and couldn't directly use it. Moreover, the insect could absorb it and mechanize it, which meant that it had the ability to digest it. However, it had still ended up like this. Perhaps it really was impossible, and after thinking about it, Zhao Fu decided to give up on the experiment. Beside him, Mu Minxian said, "Your Majesty, I feel that we can continue experimenting. I feel that we can continue experimenting. That insect has the ability to digest the sage stone, and this ability is quite special. If we can grasp this ability, we'll be able to use it to our full potential." Hearing this, Zhao Fu thought about it and felt that this ability was indeed worth researching. Perhaps he would be able to grasp alchemy power through this. He had given up too early, and the method of letting the insect directly devour the sage stone was not feasible. He could take another path. As such, Zhao Fu once again started his research. He fed the sage stones to the insect one by one before looking at the result. The stage 1 insect's body exploded, the stage 2 insect's body exploded, the stage 3 insect died from the pain, and the stage 4 insect died from the pain. What surprised Zhao Fu was that even though the stage 5 insect seemed to be in pain, it had survived in the end. This shattered Zhao Fu's conclusion. It turned out that the insect could refine the sage stone and survive. Now, Zhao Fu carefully looked at the insect. Its carapace had been completely mechanized. Although it wasn't very advanced, its defense had greatly increased. However, what surprised Zhao Fu was that the insect's alchemy power had disappeared, only primal chaos aura remained. The insect had treated the philosopher's stone like food. It had digested the philosopher's stone and refined the philosopher's power into primal chaos energy. Zhao Fu inspected the insect's body. Although it had suffered some damage, it could still recover. However, the insect's power and defense had greatly increased. This primal chaos power was formed from alchemy power, and it had inherited alchemy power's creation, life, and mechanical abilities. Of course, it wasn't as powerful as true alchemy power. Zhao Fu felt quite surprised. He had never thought of using such a method to control alchemy power. Didn't that mean that all of his research had been for nothing? However, after thinking about it, Zhao Fu realized that only creatures from the outer world could do this. After all, the outer world's primal chaos power and bloodlines had the ability to disintegrate and suppress alchemy power, while Heaven-Awakened world creatures did not. Even though people from the Heaven-Awakened world could not use it, this discovery was still quite important. For example, Qin had the blood demon snake mosquito, which was a fusion of the Heaven-Awakened world and the outer world. Chapter 1753. If possible, it would also have a great effect on the blood devil snake mosquitoes. It would allow them to possess primal chaos alchemy power, increasing their strength and defensive power. However, the blood demon snake mosquitoes were only at rank 3 and couldn't bear the power of the Philosopher's Stone. Previously, the Philosopher's Stone he had fed the Tier 2 alchemist soldiers were Tier 2 alchemist soldiers. That was something only Tier 5 alchemist soldiers could endure. Moreover, they would suffer severe injuries. If one wanted to easily control this power, they would need to be at least Tier 7. As rank 3 blood demon snake mosquitoes, it was clearly impossible. If they ate the Philosopher's Stone, their bodies would definitely explode. Zhao Fu thought about it and wondered if he had the ability to split the Philosopher's Stone into smaller pieces and feed them to the blood demon snake mosquitoes. They should be able to refine the Philosopher's Stone's power. Thinking about that, Zhao Fu started to act. He took out a Philosopher's Stone and tossed it into the air. He slashed out with his finger, sending out a sharp sword light that slashed towards the descending Philosopher's Stone. The sharp sword light flashed. It was extremely sharp and directly cut the descending Philosopher's Stone in two. Bang! The Philosopher's Stone also exploded, and an explosive power spread out. Zhao Fu stretched out his hand to block it. He discovered that the Philosopher's Stone was an explosive item. Once it was destroyed, it would explode. It seemed that splitting the Philosopher's Stone was not an easy matter. He had to think of other ways to cut it, and he couldn't just use brute force to cut it. However, this matter wasn't that difficult. Since primal chaos power could restrain and digest the Philosopher's Stone, he could use the primal chaos world's formation to cut it. A day later, the primal chaos world's formation was carved. Zhao Fu activated it, and a powerful energy flowed into it. The primal chaos world's formation gave off an intense light, and sharp lights appeared. Zhao Fu threw the sage's stone into the magic array. Sharp lights slashed at the sage's stone, cutting it into pea-sized pieces. This time, the sage's stone did not explode. After stopping the magic formation, the Philosopher's Stone fragments fell to the ground. Zhao Fu stretched out his hand and grabbed them. He then went to the blood demon serpent mosquito nest in the primal chaos world and called over a few blood demon serpent mosquitoes. Now, these blood demon snake mosquitoes were all 3 meters long. Zhao Fu took out a few pieces and fed them to the blood demon snake mosquitoes before waiting for them to take effect. 1 minute passed. 5 minutes passed. 10 minutes passed. Zhao Fu frowned. Why wasn't there any reaction after so much time had passed? The blood demon snake mosquitoes didn't show any change, nor did they seem to be in pain. Could it be that the Philosopher's Stone had no effect because the demonic blood snake mosquitoes were the product of the fusion of two worlds? However, that shouldn't be the case. After all, the Philosopher's Stone would harm creatures from both worlds and cause them pain. It was impossible for there to be no reaction at all. What was the problem then? Zhao Fu looked at the Philosopher's Stone fragments in his hand and ate one. Now that Zhao Fu had the alchemy power and alchemy bloodline, he didn't have to worry about the alchemy power being damaged. Only by eating it would he be able to quickly understand what was wrong. After eating the Philosopher's Stone fragment, Zhao Fu closed his eyes and tried to sense the reaction of the Philosopher's Stone fragment. However, there was no reaction at all, as if he had eaten a useless stone. After cutting the Philosopher's Stone, the Philosopher's Stone had lost all of its power and was no different from a normal stone. No wonder there was no reaction. Zhao Fu spat out the Philosopher's Stone fragment and felt quite troubled. The blood demon snake mosquitoes were only at stage 3, and Qin only had these creatures that had fused with the primal chaos world. He didn't have any other options. Only stage 7 creatures could withstand the Philosopher's Stone, and if a stage 3 creature ate it, its body would definitely explode. Does that mean Qin won't be able to use the Philosopher's Stone? Zhao Fu sank into his thoughts, thinking about how to solve this problem. Over the next few days, Zhao Fu conducted various experiments of various sizes. In the end, he found a method that didn't require cutting the Philosopher's Stone, which was to use the Philosopher's Stone's magic formation to extract the Philosopher's Stone's power and send it into the blood demon snake mosquitoes' bodies to see what would happen. Zhao Fu hadn't experimented with this before, so he didn't know what the results would be. As such, he brought a few blood demon snake mosquitoes and had one fly into the magic formation before activating it. After the magic formation was activated, it gave off a light and a wave of energy spread out. The Philosopher's Stones in the surroundings also gave off a faint light and gave off waves of energy that were controlled by the magic formation and entered the blood demon snake mosquito's body. CSI. As the wave of alchemy power entered the blood demon snake mosquitoes' bodies, they felt intense pain and gave out commands as they instinctively flew out of the magic formation. However, Zhao Fu ordered the blood demon snake mosquitoes to stay within the magic formation and absorb the alchemy power. The blood demon snake mosquitoes could only stay within the magic formation, flapping their wings as they absorbed the alchemy power. In actuality, this magic formation was much better than the devouring method because it could be controlled and could be stopped at any time. If they ate it, they would have to digest it or else they would die. As the blood demon snake mosquitoes continuously absorbed the alchemy power, their bodies started to change. First, their sharp mouthparts started to become mechanical, and their backs also started to become mechanical. However, their auras also became stronger. Seeing this scene, Zhao Fu smiled. The results proved that the blood demon snake mosquitoes could absorb the Philosopher's Stone and could still be used by Qin. Now, Qin had obtained this type of Philosopher's Stone by killing countless alchemist soldiers, and there were 200 million of them. It was simply impossible to use them all. It was a pity that Great Qin did not have enough blood demon snake mosquitoes, only a few million of them, and they did not have any other creatures. After a while, the blood demon snake mosquitoes stopped screaming and started to absorb the alchemy power, and their bodies became more mechanical. Finally, after the blood demon snake mosquitoes finished absorbing the alchemy power, Zhao Fu stopped the magic formation and looked at the blood demon snake mosquitoes. By now, 60% of the blood demon snake mosquitoes had become mechanical, and their defenses had greatly increased. Moreover, they had also grasped the chaos attribute alchemy power, making it so that chaos power could no longer suppress the blood demon snake mosquitoes. However, the increase in stats was not as great as the increase from eating a stage 3 alchemist stone, but Zhao Fu was quite satisfied. This blood demon snake mosquito was definitely more powerful than a stage 3 alchemist soldier. Not only could it suppress alchemist soldiers, but it also grasped the chaos attribute alchemy power. Chapter 1754. Now, Zhao Fu could consider fusing more of these creatures. After all, Qin had a large number of Philosopher's Stones that he had no use for, so he could use them here to increase Qin's strength. The outer world dens were quite easy to make, but the heaven-awakened world dens were quite difficult to find. Moreover, ordinary dens were useless, and they needed powerful dens to fuse with them. However, no matter how difficult it was, Zhao Fu had to do it because he could increase Qin's strength. Thinking about it, if Qin had a large number of Chaos Gold refined bugs, the effects would be quite shocking. Zhao Fu ordered people to search for or collect powerful dens in the heaven-awakened world, and he also ordered people to construct a large number of such alchemy formations. By now, Qin had millions of blood demon snake mosquitoes, and they could all be refined to increase their power and abilities. Zhao Fu then returned to Qin's research area. He wanted to continue his research on the heaven-awakened world, but because of the heaven-awakened world's major weakness, he had not solved the problem of how to suppress the heaven-awakened world. If he did not research this as soon as possible, the next time the heaven-awakened world attacked, Qin's losses would be massive. However, a soldier came up and reported, "Your Majesty, Sir Li is looking for you. Lord Li is looking for you, please come over." Hearing this, Zhao Fu felt quite confused. Why was Li Si looking for him? Zhao Fu nodded and left the research area for now, and he went to where Li Si was. Li Si was standing near a rice field, and there were a few ministers in charge of agriculture next to him. There was also a woman with a mature figure and a wheat-like headdress, and she gave off a gentle aura. She was the agriculture goddess. Seeing this, Zhao Fu understood that something was wrong with agriculture. Seeing Zhao Fu arrive, Li Si and the others went up and bowed, saying, "We greet your majesty." Zhao Fu nodded and asked, "Is there something wrong with agriculture?" Li Si nodded with a slight look of difficulty as he replied, "Your majesty, there is indeed a big problem with agriculture. There is indeed a big problem with agriculture. Now, all the fertile fields are greatly reduced." Zhao Fu's expression became quite serious. Agriculture was the foundation of a nation, and if something went wrong with it, it would greatly affect the nation. He asked, "Why did these problems occur? Doesn't Qin have the agriculture goddess and some production attributes?" The farm goddess said apologetically, "I'm sorry. Your Majesty, Qin's territory is too big, and my divine power can't cover that far. What's more, my divine power has a great impact on agriculture." Zhao Fu frowned and said, "What's the reason?" "This is related to the source of heaven and earth. If the source of heaven and earth declines, the effect of my divine power will be greatly weakened. That's why this situation has occurred." Hearing that the source of heaven and earth was declining, Zhao Fu did not even need to think to know why. Now that the heaven-awakened world was facing a pincer attack from two massive factions, the situation was quite difficult. Moreover, the situation was quite disadvantageous for the heaven-awakened world. Qin was quite powerful, but if it was facing the heaven-awakened world, the ordinary factions would not be able to retaliate at all and could only passively defend. The disadvantageous situation of the battle directly affected the heaven-awakened world. That was why such a scene had occurred. Zhao Fu came to the paddy field and picked up a stalk of rice. He looked at the somewhat shriveled rice and saw that it was no longer as full as it had been before. Back then, this kind of rice had been able to rapidly grow on the ground without needing to be cared for. Not only could it be harvested every 12 days, but it was also full, and each plot of land could produce a lot of food. Now, not only did it take 2 months to grow, but the grains were also so small and shriveled. After maturing, this kind of rice would only be low-grade rice, and it would not taste good and would not be nutritious. If all of Qin's fields were like this, the total output would greatly decrease. Even though Qin had been storing up food, no matter how much food there was, if they did not plant it, they would run out one day. If there was no food, the commoners would starve to death or lose their minds due to hunger. They would become like wild animals and eat whatever they saw. There were even cases of cannibalism, which was quite common in ancient times. Zhao Fu looked a bit worried and turned to Li Si as he asked, "Are all of Qin's fields like this?" Li Si nodded seriously and said, "Not only that, Your Majesty. Please come with me to another place to have a look." Hearing this, Zhao Fu nodded and followed Li Si to another field. The roots of the rice here had turned white and black, and the branches and leaves had withered and turned yellow. There was not a single grain of rice left, and there was not a single trace of life left. What's going on? Zhao Fu's heart sank as he looked at the dead fields. If all of Qin's fields were like this, there would be no harvest at all. Li Si explained, "Your Majesty, this is a disease in rice. This is a kind of disease in rice. It has already spread, and many fields have this kind of situation. Not only rice, but other wheat and other grains are also showing this kind of situation. It's not just this kind of disease. Some of the rice's grains are flat, and there won't be any rice inside. After a long time, the grains will turn black and fall off when touched, and the grains will die. Also, the rice with this disease doesn't appear one by one. Instead, it appears in large patches. If we don't deal with it in time, the whole mu of land will be like this very soon." When that time comes, there won't be a single grain in the whole mu of land. Zhao Fu felt a headache coming on as he asked, "What's the reason for this?" Li Si replied, "This is a common disease in rice, and it's not very special. It's just that at that time, the heaven and earth power was abundant, causing the rice's life force to be very strong, making it immune to all diseases. However, now that the heaven and earth power has declined, this disease will appear. I've already sent out orders to all of Qin's prefectures and counties to be on guard against this problem and deal with it as soon as it appears. All of the prefectures and counties are carrying out the orders, so the situation is not too serious." Zhao Fu let out a sigh of relief. Li Si was very good at dealing with these things, and Zhao Fu himself had many things to do. If he waited for this to happen, it would be too late, and it was good to have many useful people by his side. Chapter 1756. There were many factors that affected the growth of crops, such as sunlight, the fertility of the soil, water, and temperature. In the past, life energy had been powerful, so they only needed to be slightly managed. However, now that the heaven and earth source energy had declined, these crops had become much weaker and could easily be destroyed. This would be fine as long as they strengthened their management, but other things, such as the diseases of crops, needed to be dealt with, so they needed many scholars to research them. Seeds also needed to be improved, as the situation in the heaven-awakened world might become even worse. As such, they needed even better seeds to survive in the future. These were the two main areas of research, but they could not be done in a short period of time. They needed long-term research. After all, there were too many types of crops, and all of them had different seeds and different diseases, so they needed to research each and every one of them. Moreover, it was not easy to improve a single crop, and it required countless experiments and time. Zhao Fu understood how difficult it was to improve crops, and he understood how massive this project was. As such, he used a large number of talented people to participate in the research. He did not force them to find a solution in a short period of time, as there was no point in forcing them. However, the current situation had to be dealt with for now and could not allow the situation to continue to worsen. Zhao Fu now understood the reason. It was mainly because the heaven and earth source energy had declined, causing crops to lose their powerful life force. As such, all sorts of diseases and problems had appeared. If something could give them powerful life force, those problems would disappear, and powerful life force would allow them to become immune to those diseases and problems. However, what could give life force? There were many things that could give life force, such as water of life, which could give large amounts of life force. Qin City also had a lot of water of life, but they were usually used as healing potions for soldiers. If it was used to irrigate farmland, the effects would be quite good, but Zhao Fu could not do this because there were simply too many farmland in Qin City. There were hundreds of billions of people there, and there was not enough water of life. As such, no matter how much water of life there was, it would not be enough. Is there any way to give such a large amount of life force to crops? Zhao Fu sank into his thoughts, but there did not seem to be anything that could be used on such a large area of crop. If he did not deal with this as soon as possible, by the time the scholars finished their research, it would be too late. Suddenly, Zhao Fu could sense the surrounding spiritual energy. Although the heaven and earth essence had declined, the spiritual energy did not seem to have weakened. Zhao Fu immediately understood the reason. A spirit qi was the foundation of cultivation, and without spirit qi, what was the point of cultivating? If the heaven-awakened world weakened spirit qi, countless people would die. Moreover, not having spiritual power was equivalent to having no power. How could they resist the alchemy world and the chaotic world? As such, spirit qi would not be affected much unless the heaven-awakened world was destroyed. Spiritual qi was a mysterious power that could bestow great power upon people, as well as great vitality. Moreover, it existed in the world, and the amount was incalculable. It could be used to increase the vitality of crop. Zhao Fu quickly called over a formation master. The simplest and fastest way to use spirit force was to build a spirit-gathering formation. The spirit force in the surroundings would gather within the formation, and the plants that grew within the formation would be constantly nourished by spirit force, allowing them to obtain powerful vitality. As long as they had vitality, they would be immune to all sorts of problems and problems would be solved. In order to verify his idea, Zhao Fu brought the formation master to a field of farmland and had them create a simple spirit-gathering formation to cover the farmland. The formation master obeyed and quickly created a spirit-gathering formation before activating it. The surrounding spirit force continuously flowed into the formation, and the ordinary rice plants absorbed a large amount of spirit force and became jade green and lustrous. Zhao Fu looked at the sickly rice plants and saw that they were quickly recovering their vitality, and the sickly symptoms gradually disappeared. From this, it could be seen that Zhao Fu's method was quite feasible. However, after thinking about it, Zhao Fu decided to give up on this method. After all, there were countless counties and villages in Qin, and each mu of farmland was not small. It would be impossible to count them all, and the amount of materials required would be unimaginable. As such, using a magic formation would not be very practical. Unless he could create a super magic formation that covered the 9 worlds and gathered the spirit qi of the other worlds, all of Qin would directly benefit, and he would not have to go through so much trouble to build countless spirit-gathering formations. However, he could only think about this. After all, such a massive magic formation was not something that could be casually created. The larger the magic formation, the more complicated it would be. Right now, Qin did not have that kind of ability. Now, he could let the formation masters study it, and it might be of great use in the future. Back to the original question, how could he make the crops gain vitality and resist those sickly symptoms and problems? Zhao Fu thought for a long time and finally came up with a method, which was to create a special item that could increase the vitality of the crops. First, he had to build a spirit-gathering formation that could turn countless amounts of water into spirit water. The effect did not need to be strong, only some would be enough. Only then would the quantity be large. If the effect was strong, it would naturally take more time, and the quantity would be small. The spirit water would be the main material, and Zhao Fu would add a bit of water from the spring of life into it. He would also have the flower spirit cast a blessing. With the 3 types of energy combined, the effect would not be too weak. Zhao Fu quickly started to experiment. He set up a spirit-gathering formation that covered the water, and spirit qi continuously gathered in the surroundings. After a few days, the water had some spirit qi, and Zhao Fu poured in water from the spring of life and had the flower spirit cast a blessing. Finally, he gave it to the crops and the effects were quite good. After absorbing the spirit water, the crops gained some vitality, and the sickly symptoms and problems disappeared. The fruits that they bore also became better. Even though the crops did not have as much vitality as before, Zhao Fu was quite satisfied with the current situation. This was only a temporary solution, and he would have to wait for the scholars to research different seeds and methods to cure different diseases. Once the massive spirit-gathering formation was successfully researched, it would also have great effects. Zhao Fu smiled and ordered people to popularize the spirit water. However, because the region was too big, it was impossible to directly use this spirit water to irrigate the crops, and they had to use it every once in a while. Chapter 1757. After dealing with these matters, Zhao Fu planned to rest for a while, as the recent matters had been giving him quite a headache. However, soon, more reports came from various places. In Dongyue County, thick, dark clouds covered the sky, not revealing a single crack. It was as if they were about to press down from the sky, giving off a very oppressive feeling. The wind also started to howl, causing the trees to sway. Rumble! A bolt of lightning tore through the sky, followed by the sound of thunder. Following this, heavy rain began to pour down. The commoners did not pay much mind at first, thinking that it was just normal rain. However, after raining for half a day, it did not seem to be weakening at all. The river had become a dirt yellow color, and it was rising even more quickly. Some places around the city started to accumulate water, and more of it started to accumulate. The commoners started to worry. After living here for so long, this was the first time they had seen such heavy rain. If this continued, it would definitely cause a flood. An ordinary-looking, well-built man held a raincoat and a bamboo hat and prepared to go out. Seeing this, the woman asked curiously, "My son's father, where are you going in such heavy rain?" The man said, "My son's mother. This rain might cause a flood, and if that's really the case, we have to report this to the imperial court." The woman said worriedly, "The rain is too heavy. Let's wait for the rain to lessen before going out." The man angrily rebuked, "How can we wait for something related to the commoner's safety? As the observer here, I was recommended by many commoners, and I have the trust of the imperial court and His Majesty. How can I let them down?" Hearing this, the woman lowered her head. She understood this, but she felt quite wronged. The man put on his raincoat and cloak and led a few people to a nearby village. The situation was not looking good, and some of the lower areas were filled with water, forming a lake. Some of the trees in some places were also submerged. This threatened the nearby villages, and some of the farms had already been submerged. If this went on, the villages would also be submerged, and the villagers living here would be in trouble. The man immediately said to the people behind him with a serious expression, "We can't continue like this. Evacuate the villagers through the teleportation formation and report this to the city lord. Let him report this to the imperial court." In Fongsen County, the common people behaved as usual. There were peddlers doing business on the streets, passers-by walking, customers who wanted to buy things, and people who sat in their rooms chatting and laughing. Everything seemed so normal. Suddenly, the ground began to shake violently, causing all the buildings on the ground to shake more and more violently. Some tiles fell from the roofs, and some pillars and walls collapsed. The commoners all looked terrified as they dodged. Some people were smashed by the buildings and screamed, while others cried out in fear. The scene was incredibly chaotic. However, this was not the end. The trembling of the ground became more and more intense, and a massive crack appeared in the ground. Large areas of buildings collapsed, and birds hurriedly flew into the sky, while countless beasts attacked and fled. Although the tremor only lasted for 2 hours, it still caused a lot of damage. Seeing this scene, the county governor was an elder dressed in scholarly robes. His expression was quite unsightly, and he hurriedly gathered many soldiers to save people and check the extent of the damage. He then immediately wrote a report to the imperial court about what had happened. Yellow Rock County, Daddy. Why is the sun so bright today? The weather's so hot. A little girl wearing a red dress said as she pulled on the hand of a man carrying a hoe. The man looked up at the sky. The sun was incredibly bright, and there were no clouds at all. The temperature was much higher than the day before. What was going on? The man could not understand and could only smile as he said, "Daughter, the weather's too hot today. It's best if you don't follow me to the fields to work. Stay at home and have some fun. I'll ask your mother to cook something delicious for you at night." The little girl happily nodded before smiling and running home. The man went to the fields and started to hoe for a while. Soon, he felt that he couldn't take it anymore. The scorching sun seemed to be burning his skin, and large beads of sweat continuously flowed down his face as his skin started to turn red. At the same time, the man started to feel thirsty, and he couldn't help but swallow his saliva. His saliva became quite viscous, and he felt quite dizzy as if he was about to suffer a heat stroke. The man looked up at the blinding sun in the sky and used his hand to block it. He couldn't understand why the sun was so bright today. In the end, he couldn't take it anymore and took his hoe to a large tree to rest. It was impossible for him to continue working under such a large sun, so the man thought about it and returned home with his hoe. It was like this for the entire day. The scorching sun gave off intense rays of light that scorched the ground. There was no wind at all, and the weather was incredibly hot, as if it could be set on fire if one wasn't careful. At night, the ground was still steaming, but there was still no chill. Many of the villagers couldn't take it anymore and came to the village chief's house to ask, "Village chief, what's going on? Why is it so hot today? I don't think it's been like this before." The village chief was a skinny middle-aged man, and he said warmly, "Everyone, don't be anxious and don't worry. I just went to the city to ask around, and the surrounding areas are all like this. It's likely that there will be a drought." "What? Drought?" Hearing this, the villagers were sent into an uproar. Disasters were things that people feared, and a drought would cause water sources to dry up and all crops to die. Everyone started to worry. "If it's a drought, what should we do, village chief?" Facing everyone's gazes, the village chief smiled as he said, "Don't worry, the county chief has already reported this to the imperial court. The sheriff has already reported this matter to the imperial court. Our respected and great emperor will definitely resolve this matter. You don't have to worry about anything." Hearing this, everyone let out a sigh of relief. Now that their great majesty knew about this, he would definitely have a way to resolve this matter. The villagers all trusted their majesty greatly, so they weren't too worried. Following this, the villagers dispersed and returned to their homes. The little girl ran over and hugged the man's leg as she asked curiously, "Daddy? Go to the village chief and ask if there's anything wrong." The man smiled as he replied, "Understood. There might be a drought." Chapter 1758. The man smiled as he said, "The county magistrate has already reported this to the imperial court, and His Majesty already knows. He will resolve this problem soon, and the village chief told us not to worry and to listen to the imperial court's arrangements." Hearing this, the woman felt at ease and smiled as she said, "That's good. Since His Majesty knows about this, we can rest assured." The little girl looked at the two of them and said in a childish voice, "Dad, Mom, have you seen His Majesty? What kind of person is he?" The man smiled as he rubbed her head. "His Majesty is in Xianying's Qin Imperial Palace, and we can see him. As for what kind of person he is, I can tell you that he is a great person and a very good ruler. It was he who created the Qin Empire and gave us everything." The little girl said with a look of worship, "Then Dad, can you tell me more about His Majesty?" Seeing that there was nothing wrong, the man smiled as he picked up the little girl and sat by the side as he started to tell her about Zhao Fu. The little girl listened intently. Jiwu Prefecture County. Whoosh, 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 a gale started to howl, bringing with it a terrifying power as it swept forwards. Countless trees swayed, and countless rocks and stones were blown into the sky. Some tiles and roofs of houses were blown away, creating a terrifying scene. Now, the commoners could only hide in their houses, and hearing the howling of the gale, they could not help but feel afraid. A soldier stared at the gale and went up to report, "Sir, this gale is very big and has affected the entire prefecture county. The situation is very serious, and there have been some casualties. It's best to quickly report this to the imperial court and ask His Majesty to send people to deal with it." The official was a middle-aged man, and hearing the soldier's words, his expression became quite unsightly. He hurriedly returned to the city lord's mansion and wrote a memorial to the Qin Imperial Palace. Huanshan Prefecture County. "Look, why have those birds all flown away? They seem to be panicking. Is something big about to happen?" A young man carrying a bamboo basket on his back said to a few young men beside him as he looked at the countless birds in the sky and quickly flew to one side as if escaping. The faces of the few young men beside them turned solemn when they saw the scene before them. One of the young men suddenly thought of something and hurriedly called out, "Hurry and tell the villagers that the nearby volcanoes are about to erupt." Hearing this, everyone was shocked, and their expressions became somewhat ugly. If the fire broke out, it would be a devastating disaster. At that time, everything would be destroyed. If they didn't deal with it as soon as possible, the consequences would be very serious. The few of them quickly turned around and rushed back to the village. Boom, boom, boom. Not long after, a few loud rumbling sounds rang out. Countless sand and dust were blown into the sky by a huge force, covering the entire sky. From afar, it looked like a haze had shrouded the sky. Immediately after, half of the sand and dust that had been blown into the sky fell back down. Scorching lava slowly flowed out of the mountain and spread out in all directions with immense heat. Everything in its path started to burn, and some trees were also set ablaze. The strong smell of sulfur also spread out like a tide, quickly spreading hundreds of miles. In a small mountain village not far away, those young men had just run back, but the volcano had already erupted. Even if they didn't say it, everyone already knew about it. The village chief loudly called out, "There's not much time left. Take everything that can be taken away. If you can't, don't worry about it. Staying alive is more important. Leave through the teleportation formation and report this matter to the city lord. After the city lord hears about this, he will immediately report this to the county lord, and when the time comes, the county lord will report this to His Majesty. His Majesty will deal with this matter, so Great Qin doesn't need to worry too much." Hearing the village chief's words, the people who had been panicking also relaxed. They didn't have the fear and confusion from before. Our Majesty is the greatest majesty in the world. With his ability, he'll definitely solve this matter. We shouldn't worry too much and just follow the village chief's orders. That's right. We all believe in His Majesty. He's the Emperor of Qin, and he won't ignore us. Hurry up and start moving. Don't waste any more time. His Majesty's great achievements don't need to be said. All of Qin knows about it, and he doesn't want to see anything happen to his people. The villagers took their things in an orderly manner and carried them into the teleportation channel, and they were teleported to a small city. The youths who had run back let out sighs of relief. It seemed that even if the volcano erupted, there wouldn't be much of a problem. Everyone seemed quite united and calm, and they all had a powerful spiritual support. That was naturally the ruler of Qin, Zhao Fu. If this Qin's Majesty was here, everyone would have 100% trust in him and be united. It could be seen just how much the commoners supported and worshipped Zhao Fu. This had a lot to do with Qin's policies and Zhao Fu's charisma. Only the founding emperor, Zhao Fu, could do such a thing. Even if someone inherited Zhao Fu's position in the future, they would not be able to do such a thing. Fish Scale World, Hanshui Prefectural County. A few fish scale people were swimming in the water. One of them suddenly sensed something and said with a trace of confusion, "Have you all sensed that the water nearby is being sucked away by some sort of power?" Another fish scale person pointed and hurriedly said, "I sensed it too. The water is being sucked in that direction." A fish scale person said, "Let's hurry over and take a look. With such a powerful suction force, it's definitely something big." The other fish scale people nodded and swam in that direction. As they got closer and closer, the suction force became stronger and stronger. In the end, they looked at the scene in front of them in shock. They saw a tornado made of water spinning with immense power, giving off a massive suction force. The water in the surroundings was sucked away, and the tornado became larger and larger, giving off terrifying power as it destroyed everything in its surroundings. "Hurry and go back. The fish scale people hurriedly turned and swam back to report this to the city lord. If this water tornado destroyed everything, it would be incredibly terrifying, and their city would be doomed. After all, their city was nearby. After hearing about this, the city lord's expression became serious, and he hurriedly gave the order to evacuate the residents and reported this matter to his superiors. As the governor of this place, he understood how serious this matter was, so he immediately wrote a memorial and sent it to Qin's imperial palace. Chapter 1759. Zhao Fu thought about it and found that this had to do with the decline of the heaven and earth source energy. The heaven and earth source energy was the power that stabilized the world, and if it declined, it would naturally cause many disasters. The natural disaster resistance stat had some effect, but it was greatly weakened. Now, there were 62 counties affected by natural disasters. Given how big Great Qin's territory was, this was not a big number, so the overall situation was not too bad. The kingdoms that did not have any natural disaster resistance abilities would be more heavily affected. However, Zhao Fu could not allow this to develop. The destruction caused by the disasters was incredibly shocking, and a county or county could be heavily damaged. Moreover, he had to make preparations for disasters. No one knew where the disasters would happen, so he had to be on guard and deal with them as soon as possible to ensure the safety of Qin's residents and properties. Zhao Fu could not let down the residents' trust. As for stopping the disasters, Zhao Fu did not rely on many soldiers to send reinforcements and instead planned to suppress the source of the disasters. In the past, Zhao Fu might not have been able to do much because he did not have world realm experts. However, Zhao Fu now had some world realm experts and some extreme divine realm experts, and he now had 4 emperor heaven realm experts. After reaching the world realm, one would have the ability to use heaven and earth power and change weather phenomena. A world realm expert would be able to stop a disaster that affected a county or county. If it was a disaster that affected a world realm experts naturally would not be able to stop it, so they would need Emperor Heaven Realm experts to act. If it was a disaster that affected 10 worlds, they would need even more experts to act. Zhao Fu did not waste any time and gathered many world realm experts and extreme divine realm expert. Many experts hurried over, including Shang Long, Zilingye, Mo Wulin, and Zhu Tianling. They were all people that Zhao Fu had subdued in the underworld, Demon Domain, and Outlander Domain. Zhao Fu told them about this matter and had them deal with it as soon as possible. Following this, everyone turned into rays of light and shot over the horizon, disappearing. Zhao Fu didn't stay in Qin Imperial Palace either. He gave off a powerful aura and turned into a powerful ray of black light that shot into the sky and soon disappeared. In Dongyue County, the thick, dark clouds covered the sky, leaving not a single crack. The heavy rain continued to fall, showing no signs of stopping. Many places had already formed lakes, and some villages and farmlands were also submerged. Some cities couldn't avoid being affected. The rising rain had already reached knee-deep. The heavy rain continued to pour down. Many commoners could only brave the heavy rain and carry all sorts of things as they moved. At this moment, a burly man carrying 2 boxes looked towards the sky and cursed, "Why isn't the rain stopping?" Suddenly, he saw a person appear in the sky. He wore a black golden dragon robe and had extremely long black hair. He had an extremely handsome face and gave off a noble and domineering aura that no one could compare to. Looking at this person, the burly man's body froze and he looked quite confused. He felt incredibly nervous because this was the ruler of the Qin Empire, Qin's emperor. Just as the burly man was about to call out and warn everyone that the emperor of Qin had arrived. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as a massive wave of energy exploded out. A massive aura spread out like a wild gale, blowing away countless raindrops. Zhao Fu's expression was calm as he gripped his fist. Powerful energy gathered in his fist, causing it to give off a black light. Bang! Zhao Fu vigorously punched out, sending out a terrifying fist energy that seemed to be able to destroy everything. It smashed against the thick, black clouds like a bolt of lightning, resulting in a massive explosion. A massive hole appeared in the thick clouds, revealing the blue sky. Rays of warm sunlight shined down, shining on countless people's bodies. Countless people stared at the figure in the sky, as if they were looking up at a god. They looked up at Zhao Fu, who was standing in the sky. The clouds in the surroundings were pushed away by a massive force, and the dense clouds started to disperse before disappearing. Because Zhao Fu still had to stop other disasters, he did not have time to say anything and turned into a ray of light and disappeared. Immediately, the commoners below seemed to be in an uproar. Their expressions were filled with excitement and agitation, and the voices they made were also boiling. Heavens! Is that His Majesty? Did His Majesty personally come to stop the disaster and save us? I'm so touched. That's right. It's His Majesty. It's the first time I've seen His Majesty, and he's so extraordinary and has such an emperor's aura that even I want to kneel. His Majesty seems to be very good. He loves his people and personally helped us. Now I also feel very honored to be a citizen of Qin. His Majesty is so kind and considerate of us. His Majesty. He's also very good-looking and has a domineering aura. I really like His Majesty. I wonder if I'll be chosen when His Majesty chooses a wife. The rain in Dongyue County stopped, and the rising floodwaters quickly receded. The disaster was naturally resolved, and the residents started to pack up their things and clean up the mud. Soon, everything returned to normal. The ground in Fangsen County was still shaking. Because it was an earthquake and it had come quite suddenly, it was one of the places that had suffered the most damage. Everyone had started to clean up the collapsed buildings and save the people buried inside, and Qin's soldiers had quickly arrived to help. However, the continuous shaking made it impossible for everyone to clean up safely, as buildings would collapse from time to time. The county governor looked at this scene in grief, and the others were the same. This earthquake had caused many casualties, and the atmosphere was quite heavy. At that moment, a ray of light shot over, and after the light dissipated, Zhao Fu's figure appeared. Seeing Zhao Fu, the county governor was pleasantly surprised and shouted nervously, "His Majesty is here." Immediately, countless people looked up at the sky in delight, and the gloominess in their hearts disappeared. Now that their Majesty had come, this matter would definitely be resolved. Everyone could not help but kneel and loudly call out, "We greet your Majesty." Their voices were very loud and shook the surroundings, and they had an inspiring power. Zhao Fu lightly nodded and took out a stone of life with a serious expression before throwing it into the sky. The stone of life exploded in the sky, and countless green motes of light slowly floated down. Chapter 1760. The earthquake continued, and Zhao Fu, who was standing in the air, quickly looked around with his left eye. Soon, he found the source of the earthquake. Zhao Fu flew down and pressed his palm against the ground. A massive wave of energy flowed into it, and a gigantic sealing formation appeared. The surrounding heaven and earth energy continuously flowed into it, causing the sealing formation to shine with intense light. A powerful suppressive force spread out in an instant, and the shaking of the ground gradually stopped. After doing all this, Zhao Fu did not stop for a moment. He turned into a ray of light and shot towards the horizon, disappearing. The sun of the Yellowstone County continued to emit strong rays of sunlight as it scorched the ground. Steam rose from the ground, blurring the view. The ground seemed to be like a steamer, causing people to feel extremely uncomfortable. Some of the ground had already cracked, and some of the plants had withered due to the lack of water. Some of them had even died. "Daddy, why is the weather still so hot?" The little girl ran to the man's side and looked at him with concern. The man looked at the sky and lightly laughed as he said, "His Majesty should know about the situation here and is thinking of a way to resolve it. We need to wait for a while, but His Majesty will definitely send people to resolve this. We don't have to worry." The little girl smiled in relief. Because of the hot weather, she took out a small fan and started to fan herself. She also helped her father fan himself a few times. Suddenly, she saw a figure appear in the sky. The little girl stretched out her little hand in surprise and pointed at the figure as she asked, "Daddy? Look, why is there a person standing in the sky?" The man looked up in confusion, and his heart tightened. Although he had never seen His Majesty Qin before, when he saw the black dragon robe, he immediately knew who that person was. "Daughter, hurry and kneel. That's our Majesty, Qin's Majesty." The man's expression was both emotional and nervous as he pulled his daughter to kneel on the ground. Although the little girl was kneeling with her father, her eyes were filled with curiosity and worship as she looked at the figure in the sky. This was the Qin Majesty that she had heard about since she was young. Zhao Fu looked at the scorching sun and stretched out a hand. A wave of energy flowed out, and a massive ceiling formation appeared. The surrounding heaven and earth energy flowed in, and a massive wave of energy spread out. The formless power of drought was sealed by this enormous power. The light was also quickly weakening, and the hot temperature was also decreasing. Immediately, the people on the ground felt a slight chill and felt much more comfortable. They all revealed looks of joy and loudly thanked Zhao Fu in the sky. Zhao Fu simply nodded and looked at the cracked ground and withered plants. He stretched out a hand and grabbed at the air, causing a massive wave of energy to spread out. The surrounding heaven and earth energy gathered and turned into clouds that covered the sky. A gust of cold wind blew and a light drizzle fell from the sky. The heat in the surroundings immediately disappeared. After doing this, Zhao Fu turned into a ray of light and once again disappeared. The little girl's large eyes stared at Zhao Fu, and by now, Zhao Fu's figure had been deeply imprinted into her heart. The wild winds continued to howl within Jiwu Prefectural County. The wind was deafening, and its power was terrifying as if it could destroy everything. Countless trees swayed, and some were even uprooted. Many roofs were sent flying, and boulders were sent tumbling. In the face of such a huge storm, no one could do anything. The only thing they could do was hide in their houses and avoid the strong wind. The chubby middle-aged man looked at the storm that was becoming larger and larger, and he couldn't help but feel worried. If the storm continued, countless houses would be blown down, and there would be no place for the residents to hide. As such, he could only order the entire city to evacuate. Suddenly, he saw a ray of light shoot into the center of the storm like a sharp sword. After the light dissipated, a figure appeared within the storm. The middle-aged man's eyes widened and his mouth gaped open as he looked at that figure. He had never thought that the ruler of Qin City would personally come. The middle-aged man did not hesitate and exploded out with a powerful aura. He braved the storm and came to Zhao Fu's side. As a minister, how could he hide and let the ruler walk in front of the storm? He did not dare to do such a thing, so he braved the wind and came. However, when he came within 10 meters of Zhao Fu, a formless energy blocked the wind. The middle-aged man let out a sigh of relief and immediately bowed as he said, "Greetings, Your Majesty." Zhao Fu calmly nodded and looked at the center of the storm. He took out the emperor-killing sword and sent a massive wave of power into it, causing it to give off an intense storm of sword chi that spread out. The middle-aged man understood that Zhao Fu wanted to stop the storm, so he did not dare to disturb him and immediately retreated far away. Boom! The sword chi that the emperor-killing sword gave off formed a massive and sharp storm of sword chi that clashed with the storm, causing an even more powerful storm to spread out. At that moment, Zhao Fu raised the emperor-killing sword and vigorously slashed out. Shing! A sword hum suddenly sounded out as a massive sword light, bringing with it an incredibly ferocious storm of sword chi, slashed towards the center of the storm. Bang! The massive storm was slashed apart by the sword light and countless shockwaves dissipated. Immediately, the berserk wind stopped and the surroundings became calm again. The middle-aged man looked shocked and respectfully smiled as he said, "Your Majesty, you are indeed powerful. I can only look up to you." Zhao Fu lightly nodded before turning into a ray of light and disappearing over the horizon. The middle-aged man knew that Zhao Fu was in a hurry to deal with the other disasters, so he could only watch as this kind and powerful ruler left. Seeing that the berserk wind had stopped, the terrified residents happily walked out of their houses. Only afterwards did they find out that their Majesty had personally descended to deal with the storm, and they looked incredibly respectful, grateful, and happy. In the Huanshan County, countless volcanic ash covered the ground within a radius of dozens of miles. The rocks, houses, and trees were all covered in ash. Now, the people in the area had all been evacuated. They came to a distance and looked at the erupting volcano. The lava was like a tide, slowly inundating everything. It gave off a dark red light and a searing heat, and no power or person could stop it. Chapter 1761. A stream of light suddenly streaked across the sky. Before anyone could react, someone said after a while, "Did any of you see what flew past? It was so fast that I couldn't even see what it was." "I didn't see it clearly, but it seemed to be a person." Sigh. "Do you think they were sent by the imperial court to stop the disaster? I heard that there are many experts in the imperial court, and those experts can change the world with a wave of their hands. They are very terrifying." "That should be the case. Such a terrifying disaster can only be solved by that kind of expert. I think I saw that person wearing a black dragon robe." Hearing this, everyone present was shocked. They all looked at the person who had spoken and asked earnestly, "Are you sure you're not seeing things? Those are clothes that only His Majesty can wear." Facing everyone's gazes, that person started to feel uncertain. Suddenly, another person said, "That person is wearing a black dragon robe. There's no mistake because that black dragon is giving off a black gold light as if it's alive. It's definitely His Majesty." "What? His Majesty is here?" Hearing this, everyone became excited and nervous. Now that His Majesty Qin had come, this disaster would be easily solved. Zhao Fu came to the front of the volcanoes and looked at them, searching for the source of the disaster. Zhao Fu took out a fire attribute spear and sent a massive amount of power into it, causing it to give off a formless power. Zhao Fu raised his spear, aimed at the source of the disaster, and threw the spear in his hand. Boom! The spear gave off immense piercing power as it turned into a bolt of lightning and shot into the volcano. It was like a hot knife through butter, and there was no resistance at all. The spear shot into the volcano and stabbed into the magma. A massive magic formation appeared and a massive suppressive power spread out. The fiercely boiling lava that seemed to be able to destroy everything gradually calmed down. The lava that gushed out of the mouth of the mountain also stopped and quickly cooled down, forming pieces of black rock. The spear that was stabbed into the volcano sealed the volcano's power and slowly absorbed the massive amount of power, causing its power to continuously rise. That spear was already a legendary grade weapon, and after absorbing so much of the volcano's power, it had become even more powerful. It was possible that it would become a saint-grade weapon or even more powerful. In the future, perhaps a young man from a mountain village would accidentally pull out this spear and start his path to becoming a legendary grade weapon. Seeing that the volcano had stopped erupting, Zhao Fu did not stop and turned into a ray of light as he disappeared over the horizon. In the distance, seeing that the lava had stopped flowing and that the village had been preserved, the people could not help but cheer. They felt immense respect and worship towards Zhao Fu. Fish Scale World, Hanshui County. An enormous waterspout continuously spun, and the water in the surroundings was continuously sucked in by it. The waterspout became larger and larger, and it gave off a massive aura of suppression. It was as if it could destroy everything. The plants and rocks growing on the ground were uprooted and sucked into the waterspout. A decent-looking young fishman stood in the distance and looked at the massive waterspout with an unsightly expression. He knew that once this waterspout started to wreak havoc, it would definitely cause destruction. City Lord, this waterspout is getting bigger and bigger, and it's already nearing our city. We should move the city as soon as possible to prevent the commoners from getting caught up in the disaster. The young merman pondered for a moment before sighing and ordering for the city to be relocated. Suddenly, a black ray of light shot towards the enormous waterspout. Seeing that ray of light, the fishman looked delighted. He understood that the imperial court had sent people to deal with this waterspout. The merman youth hurriedly followed. The ray of light stopped, and the merman felt quite startled. He had never thought that Zhao Fu would personally come here, and he immediately went up and said respectfully, "We pay our respects to your majesty." Zhao Fu nodded and took out the Sin Dragon sword. Long Xiaoxiao's happy voice sounded in Zhao Fu's mind, "Master, you're finally using me? Are you going to give me some sort of reward? I've been waiting for Master's reward." Zhao Fu gave a trace of a smile, but he ignored her and sent a massive wave of power into the Sin Dragon sword. The Sin Dragon sword gave off an intense sword light, and a large amount of water gathered around it. Roar! The water continuously gathered and changed, forming an enormous water dragon that gave off an incredibly powerful dragon's might, causing the surrounding waters to sink. Zhao Fu looked at the waterspout and vigorously slashed out. Boom! The water dragon gave off massive power and an incredibly powerful dragon's might as it rushed towards the waterspout. Bang! A massive explosion sounded out as the water dragon slammed into the whirlpool. The whirlpool gave off a massive amount of spinning power, wanting to stop the massive water dragon. However, the water dragon crashed into the whirlpool with immense power, resulting in a massive explosion. The massive whirlpool was blasted apart and countless streams of water spread out, bringing with them a powerful force that destroyed countless reefs and plants. After the torrents dissipated, everything returned to normal. The fishman young man smiled and went up, saying, "Thank you, Your Majesty. If you can stop this disaster, I don't know how many people will worship you even more." Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "You are my subjects, so there is no need to thank us. Even though you are outsiders, as long as you join Qin, we will acknowledge you." The fishman young man could not help but feel even more respectful towards Zhao Fu. He had heard others talk about His Majesty in the past, and now that he had personally seen His Majesty and was able to talk to him, he understood that His Majesty was truly a grand figure. Zhao Fu did not say anything else and turned into a ray of light as he disappeared over the horizon. Apart from Zhao Fu, the other experts also used heaven and earth power to deal with the various disasters. Facing the massive tsunami, they used a massive wave of power to blast it away, and facing the sandstorm, they forcefully sealed it before using heaven and earth power to bring life back to the ground. Facing the terrifying insect disaster, they ferociously attacked and blasted out terrifying power, destroying countless insects. Insect corpses fell like rain, covering the ground with a layer of corpses. Facing all of the disasters, Qin did not take too long. Before a day had passed, they had dealt with all of the disasters. Chapter 1762. Just as Zhao Fu was about to take a rest, he suddenly thought of a better way to deal with these disasters. Moreover, he could turn these disasters into things that were beneficial to Qin. It seemed that there had been a disaster festival in the past, and there had been countless disaster beasts. As long as he killed them, he would be able to obtain disaster pearls. Qin had used those disaster pearls before, and they were incredibly destructive. If he could condense these disasters into disaster pearls, that would be the best choice. Their terrifying power would become one of Qin's trump cards, and Zhao Fu had never thought of this before. However, it would be incredibly difficult to condense these disasters into disaster pearls. After all, these were natural disasters, and there were no disaster beasts, so it was impossible to obtain disaster pearls by killing disaster beasts. Despite this, Zhao Fu still wanted to give it a try. Even though Qin had quickly dealt with many disasters, there would be many more in the future. If he could successfully develop disaster pearls, it would be quite beneficial to Qin. Thinking about that, Zhao Fu gathered some talisman masters and scholars, and they went to a sealed disaster source, which was the scattered prefecture county. Zhao Fu looked at everyone and said, "Can you all see if you can condense disaster pearls and tell me the information you obtain?" The talisman masters and scholars nodded before surrounding the seal and carefully observing the disaster source. Zhao Fu also waited by the side for the talisman masters and scholars' results. They were all professionals, and they knew much more than Zhao Fu. As such, they needed to research first, and after Zhao Fu gathered the information from them, he would do more research. After a while, a young man came to Zhao Fu's side and bowed as he reported, "Your Majesty, we have an initial understanding of the disaster source. Right now, we have a preliminary understanding of the disaster source, but we still need to go to other disaster sources to confirm whether we are correct or not." Zhao Fu nodded. There were indeed so many disasters, and if he only studied one, he wouldn't be able to truly understand the disaster. As such, he had the others go to the other disaster areas while he went back to deal with the aftermath. When he returned to Qin, there were indeed a lot of memorials to the throne. It seemed that they couldn't rest. Zhao Fu opened some memorials. Basically, they were about the reconstruction and cleanup of the disaster, the material losses caused by the disaster, and the casualties. Zhao Fu sat on the dragon throne and seriously dealt with all sorts of matters. Time passed quickly, and the day was about to pass. At that moment, the young man walked in from outside the hall and bowed before reporting, "Your Majesty! Right now, we have a rough understanding of the source of the disaster and obtained some simple information." Hearing this, Zhao Fu smiled and said, "Then tell me in detail." The young man nodded and said, "Your Majesty, first of all, these disasters are a kind of destructive force that belongs to the imbalance and instability of the world. This kind of destruction will evolve into different disasters depending on the geographical location. These disasters cover a very large area and are very destructive. It's possible to condense them into disaster pearls. As for the method, this lowly official and the talisman masters have thought of a method, which is to create magic formations in a region and gather the massive disaster power to forcefully form a disaster pearl." Zhao Fu felt quite delighted and had never thought that the scholars and scholars had already thought of a method. As such, he said, "Let's follow this method. If you need any people or materials, just tell Li Si." The young man awkwardly bowed as he said, "Your Majesty, there's a flaw with this method, which is that we have to wait for the disaster to completely spread out. Only then will we be able to gather massive amounts of disaster power, which will cause great losses to the counties. Moreover, we can't be sure where this disaster will happen, so we need to set up a huge magic formation in every county. This also requires a lot of materials." Zhao Fu also fell into deep thought. This method was clearly not feasible. Zhao Fu could accept it if it consumed a large amount of materials, but every time a disaster happened, they had to wait until it started to wreak havoc before acting. This would cause great losses to the county, and this was unacceptable to Zhao Fu. As such, Zhao Fu would not use this method, as the price would be too high. As such, he asked, "Do you have any other ways to get along?" The youth said apologetically, "Your Majesty, we are currently studying it, but we do not know how long it will take for us to produce result. I am only reporting the current progress to you so that your Majesty does not have to wait too long." Zhao Fu sighed. Sure enough, this matter wouldn't be resolved so quickly. He nodded and said, "Then continue your research. Let me know if there are any developments." The young man acknowledged the order and retreated. Zhao Fu continued to read through memorials, and some of them were about matters outside of Qin. The Devil Horn Empire and the Second Aeolian Empire's situations were slightly worse than Qin. The worst off was the alliance. They were made up of various large and small factions, and they did not have much fate. Adding on the fact that they were quite big, they had suffered the greatest losses. Normally, Zhao Fu would seize this opportunity to attack the alliance, conquer a world, and raise Qin to a royal kingdom. However, Zhao Fu did not have such thoughts, and the alchemy world was his biggest problem. Zhao Fu put this matter aside for now and did not continue to read. A while later, a valiant-looking young man walked out and reported, "Your Majesty, there is something to report." Zhao Fu looked at this young man and recognized him. He was the city lord of Disaster City, which was a royal city and was one of the largest cities in Qin. Zhao Fu felt quite confused as he asked, "What is it?" The young man replied, "Your Majesty, because of the natural disasters, Disaster City has been greatly reacting, and its disaster power has greatly increased." Zhao Fu felt quite startled. Disaster City was Qin's greatest gain from the Disaster Festival, and it contained powerful disaster power. Now that there were so many natural disasters, it made sense that Disaster City's power had increased. This was in stark contrast to the other cities, which were all becoming weaker and weaker, including the royal city of Qin. Only Disaster City's power was still increasing. Zhao Fu nodded and felt quite curious as he headed to Disaster City. The residents of Calamity City were the least numerous out of all of the cities. This was because only those with a calamity attribute could live here. If they didn't have a calamity attribute, they would be corroded by the calamity energy and die. Chapter 1763. At the same time, Zhao Fu discovered that the magic cube was absorbing the power of calamity in the world. When the source of the world was stable, in addition to Qin's resistance to natural disasters, there was no power of calamity in the world. But now that the source of the world had declined, all sorts of disasters were occurring frequently, causing the world to contain the power of calamity. Suddenly, Zhao Fu thought of something and immediately ordered people to go and see if there had been any disasters in the region around Disaster City. The soldier obeyed and quickly returned, reporting, "Your Majesty, there's no need to worry. It has been investigated that there have been no disasters in the surrounding dozens of counties for a long time." Zhao Fu gave a trace of a smile and confirmed his suspicions. The reason why there had not been any disasters in the surrounding counties was because the disaster power had been absorbed by Disaster City, making it impossible for there to be any disasters. The formation of disasters was mainly due to destruction power. Because of the different locations and environments, all sorts of disaster power would be born, and when these disaster power gathered together, they would form disasters. The attributes of the Disaster City were dozens of times better than the resistance to natural disasters. If the Disaster City was the capital, the Qin Empire would also have the disaster attribute, and they would be immune to all disasters. Moreover, if the City of Disaster really became the capital of the Qin Empire, Qin's fate and attributes would both gain some disaster attribute. However, it also had a huge flaw, which was that it didn't have any inherited attributes or abilities. At that time, the Qin Empire wouldn't be called the Qin Empire, but the Disaster Empire. This would obviously cause greater losses, and the City of Disaster would only be an ordinary city. If they wanted it to have the ability to pass down its legacy, they would have to at least make it the capital and establish it for over 100 years. It would absorb the country's fate, culture, and customs and become one with the country. That way, the City of Calamity would have the ability to pass down its legacy. Right now, Zhao Fu was not too concerned about this, nor did he have any plans to nurture Disaster City into a legacy city. Instead, since it could absorb countless disasters, he wondered if it could absorb countless disasters and condense a disaster pearl. Zhao Fu was not too worried about this. If he succeeded, Qin would be able to get the Calamity Pearl directly, and there would be no need for many talisman masters and scholars to continue to study it. However, they were now faced with a difficult problem. Calamity City was fixed in this area, and disasters occurred in different places. Calamity City could not move at will, so how could it absorb disasters from other places? If Zhao Fu moved Disaster City and took the City Creation Stone, it would most likely be able to absorb disaster energy. However, if he did that, the massive city would be gone. Moreover, even if they could absorb disaster energy and condense disaster pearls, they would still have to run around with City Creation Stones, so they wouldn't be able to condense too many disaster pearls. With the scale of the battle in Qin City, without a large number of disaster pearls, they wouldn't be of much use. Thinking of this, Zhao Fu also fell into deep thought, thinking about what to do. Following this, Zhao Fu thought of a method, which was to see if he could split up Calamity City's core energy and form it into disaster cores. With these disaster cores, he would be able to absorb disaster energy everywhere. Thinking of this, Zhao Fu immediately started. He stretched out a hand and sent a massive wave of power into the Rubik's Cube, obtaining complete control over it. The Rubik's Cube gave off an intense black light and gave off Zhao Fu's aura. Following this, Zhao Fu started to force out the Rubik's Cube's disaster energy, and an orb of black light came out of it. Looking at this orb of black light, Zhao Fu stretched out his hand and grabbed it before flying towards the scattered Commandery County. After landing on the ground, Zhao Fu revealed the ceiling formation, and Zhao Fu placed the orb of black light at the center of the ceiling formation. Following this, Zhao Fu released a bit of the ceiling formation, and a wave of yellow disaster energy flowed out, causing the ground in the surrounding 10 or so meters to slightly tremble. Luckily, Zhao Fu only released a bit of it. If he released all of it, the ground would once again violently tremble, and the scattered Commandery County would suffer. After the wave of yellow disaster energy flowed out, it was absorbed by the black orb of light at the center of the formation. Zhao Fu continued to maintain the crack in the formation, allowing the yellow disaster energy to continuously flow out. The black orb of light continuously absorbed the disaster energy, and it soon turned yellow and gave off an aura of an earthquake. Seeing this, Zhao Fu continuously expanded the crack, and the yellow disaster energy that flowed out became larger and larger. The yellow orb of light absorbed the massive amount of disaster energy and quickly crystallized, forming a yellow crystal ball that was as big as a lychee. By now, the ceiling formation had been completely undone by Zhao Fu, and all of the disaster energy that flowed out was absorbed by the yellow crystal ball. Now, the yellow crystal ball floated in the air, giving off a faint yellow light and giving off an intense aura of an earthquake. Zhao Fu looked at the disaster pearl and smiled. This was a disaster pearl, and if he released its power, it would definitely have a terrifying effect. After inspecting the disaster pearl, he found that it was not much different from the disaster pearls from before, and it was also slightly stronger. Now that things had proven that Zhao Fu's conjecture was very successful, there was no need for a scholar or a talisman master to continue researching it. He could directly use this method to obtain a disaster pearl, and it was even more powerful than before. Of course, there were some problems, which was that he had already sealed the disaster energy, so it would not be difficult for the crystal ball to absorb it. However, if he faced a true disaster, he did not know if he would be able to do this. True disasters were incredibly ferocious, and those who did not have enough power would die within them. Zhao Fu thought about it and went to the boundary region. This was the border between Qin Kingdom and other factions, so no one would care about it. At the same time, there was a wind disaster here, and it was a tornado. It was quite small, and it gave off a powerful suction force, causing everything around it to fly into the sky and be sucked into the vortex. All sorts of things were sucked into the vortex, creating a terrifying scene. Zhao Fu took out a black orb of light and decided to give it a try. Zhao Fu did not use too much power and flew in front of the tornado. The suction force pulled Zhao Fu's body forwards, and some of the rocks flew towards Zhao Fu. Facing these rocks, Zhao Fu put up a simple defensive barrier before taking out the orb of light and sending a massive amount of power into it. The orb of light gave off an intense light and gave off a massive suction force as it rushed towards the tornado. Chapter 1764. Zhao Fu poured a great amount of power into the ball of light, causing the suction force of the ball of light to become even stronger. More and more of the azure wind disaster power flowed towards the ball of light. Half a day passed, and the tornado continued to spin, resisting the wind disaster power. As for the ball of light, it seemed to be in a stalemate, but in the end, the ball of light won and absorbed all of the wind disaster power. The tornado turned into many streams of air and dissipated, and the ball of light turned into an azure crystal bead that gave off a powerful wind disaster aura. Zhao Fu was very dissatisfied with this result. This was because it took too much time and required a great deal of power, otherwise his body would be blown away, let alone the ball of light absorbing the wind disaster power. After returning to Disaster City, Zhao Fu planned to do some more tests. He forced out a few more strands of the magic cube's source disaster power, and he found that because of this, the magic cube's power was continuously decreasing. It had decreased by quite a bit, but if he continued to force out the source disaster power like this, Disaster City would definitely not have any more disaster power, and the city heart might even be damaged. This gave Zhao Fu a bit of a headache. It seemed that this method might not work. Could he just give up? If he didn't give up on forcing out the city heart's source disaster power, the city would definitely be damaged. Zhao Fu stood where he was and began to think. Soon, Zhao Fu thought of a method, but he didn't know if it would work or not. He could form a special team to collect disaster pearls, and Zhao Fu named them disaster sealers. The first thing that Zhao Fu thought of was the magic formation that the scholar had researched, which had the ability to absorb and condense disaster power. Zhao Fu wanted to create a weapon made from disaster attribute materials. He wanted to carve the magic formation into it and then fuse the ball of light into it, creating a weapon that could absorb disaster power and condense disaster power into disaster pearls. After this weapon was forged, it required a person with powerful disaster energy to use it. This was because the weapon was forged from disaster materials, and only a person with disaster energy could unleash its full power. The weapon itself had a disaster attribute, so it could absorb disaster power. The magic formation also had a powerful ability to absorb disaster power, and combined with Disaster City's disaster power, the equipment created would naturally be quite terrifying. Zhao Fu felt quite expectant. Following that, Zhao Fu ordered his men to forge the swords. He even asked the best blacksmiths in Qin City, who were Gongsun Zhu and her sister. After hearing about Zhao Fu's orders, they were very interested in forging disaster armament. Soon, they arrived at Zhao Fu's side and began to forge them. However, things did not go smoothly. They encountered some problems, and in the end, the talisman masters joined in to forge the disaster armament. It was a black spear that was 2-3 meters long and had a slightly long spearhead. There was a magic formation at the center of the spear, and there were many runes on the spear's body. There was also a circular groove at the end of the spear, which also had a magic formation. The spear gave off a dark and ominous aura and a cold intent, causing people's hairs to stand on end. "Your Majesty, are you satisfied?" Gongsun Zhu wiped the sweat off her forehead and smiled as she asked Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu took the disaster armament and examined it before smiling and nodding. He then left and went to another disaster region. He could not wait to test out the spear's power. This region was flooded, and the sky was covered by dark clouds. It continuously rained, and some parts of the ground were flooded. This place was not within Qin City's territory, so Qin City did not care. Moreover, Zhao Fu's body contained disaster energy, so he could unleash the disaster armament's power. Boom! A massive wave of disaster energy exploded out from Zhao Fu's body, sending out a massive black storm. The powerful disaster energy flowed into the spear, causing the runes on the spear to light up and a formless energy to spread out. Zhao Fu gripped the spear with one hand and stabbed it towards the sky. A massive wave of power flowed out from the spearhead and turned into a massive magic formation. Heaven and earth power gathered in the surroundings and flowed into the magic formation, causing it to give off an incredibly powerful attractive force that sucked towards the sky. Countless amounts of blue water disaster power surged into the array like a tide, and the array was like a black hole, swallowing countless amounts of water disaster power. Zhao Fu immediately sensed a massive wave of flood energy flow into the spear and condense at the circular groove at the end of the spear. At first, countless traces of blue light spread out before slowly crystallizing, forming a blue crystal ball. The rain quickly stopped, and the dark clouds in the sky slowly dissipated, revealing a clear blue sky. A few birds happily flew across the sky. Looking at the blue crystal ball, Zhao Fu smiled and took it off. After inspecting it, he found that it was a bit weaker than the disaster pearls he had condensed before. However, Zhao Fu was still quite satisfied because he could continuously condense disaster pearls with the disaster spear. Zhao Fu immediately ordered people to start forging disaster spears. However, the magic cube in Disaster City could not split too much of the source disaster energy, so he could not mass-produce disaster spears. Zhao Fu planned to first create 120 of them. At the same time, he would pick out 120 people with the strongest disaster energy from Disaster City and give them the disaster spears. They would be the future disaster masters. Now that they had disaster weapons, they also had people with disaster power. Finally, there were the natural disasters. All of the natural disasters in Qin City had been dealt with, so Zhao Fu did not want to create more natural disasters. Only an idiot would do that, so Zhao Fu planned to have the disaster masters leave Qin City to deal with the natural disasters in the outside world. The natural disasters in the outside world were much worse than in Qin City, and there was no way to deal with them. They did not have world realm experts, so there were many natural disasters waiting for Qin City to deal with. When that time came, Qin City would be able to obtain countless disaster pearls. Right now, Zhao Fu had two choices. The first was to have the disaster masters help the alliance to get closer to them and ease the conflict between the two sides. They would then catch them off guard and conquer a world. In fact, they could even work together to destroy the Devil Horn Empire and the Second Wind God Empire. That way, Qin City would be the sole ruler of this world. However, this was not a good idea, as they were not stupid. The other was to have the disaster masters go further away to deal with natural disasters and condense disaster pearls. That way, no matter what they did, good or bad, they would not be able to affect Qin City. Things would be quite simple, and they would only need to continuously condense disaster pearls. Chapter 1765. This was mainly because the pressure on the alchemy world was too great. If they chose the first option, the situation here would become even more complicated and tense. Qin's forces would be tied down here, and if the alchemy world was in danger, Qin would not be able to provide reinforcements. Right now, Qin was different from the other factions. He had 4 battlefields. The Heaven Awakening battlefield, the Primal Chaos battlefield, the Alchemy War, and the Underworld battlefield. Each of these battlefields was at a disadvantage, and required a large number of soldiers. Qin's forces were already quite tight, so he wanted the other 3 battlefields to be more peaceful and focus on dealing with the alchemy world. As long as the alchemy world was not dealt with, everything else would have to be delayed. The disaster spears and people with powerful disaster power were quickly chosen, and Zhao Fu gave the order to collect disaster pearls. The disaster masters obeyed Zhao Fu's orders and left Qin's palace. Zhao Fu returned to Qin's palace and rested for a day. After recovering, he continued to take care of various matters. The 4 battlefields were quite peaceful and nothing had happened. Zhao Fu was most concerned about the time attribute item. Now that everything was ready in Qin's palace, all he lacked was the time attribute item. Then, Qin would be able to mass-produce Philosopher's Stones. About 3 days later, Zhao Fu received some bad news about the disaster masters. Zhao Fu had ordered them not to reveal their identities and to leave after dealing with the natural disasters and gathering disaster pearls. They also had to be secretive and not be discovered. However, dealing with natural disasters was not an easy matter and would cause a great commotion. Even though Zhao Fu had told them to be careful, they could not guarantee that no one would see them dealing with natural disasters. As such, when the disaster masters were dealing with natural disasters, they were seen by some people, and the news quickly spread. Many people knew that a group of mysterious people had appeared who could deal with natural disasters. In actuality, Qin was doing a good deed because ordinary people could not deal with those natural disasters. Qin was helping them for free, and it could even be said that he was saving them. However, not only were these people not grateful, they even chased after the disaster awarding master, wanting to snatch the calamity spear. In the wilderness, a large group of people dressed in beast hides and all sorts of bone ornaments surrounded a cloaked disaster sealer. They all had a mouthful of fangs on their mouth. An ugly-looking big man walked out and his eyes contained a trace of cruelty as he looked at the disaster conqueror and loudly laughed as he said, "Thank you for dealing with our tribe's disaster. Hand over your spear and we'll leave your corpse intact and not eat you. However, if you don't hand it over and dare to resist, then not only will we cruelly kill you, we will also eat you and turn your bones into ornaments." The disaster sealing master did not reply. Instead, he looked for an opportunity to escape. However, the big man did not give him an opportunity, and he led his people to attack the disaster sealing master. The disaster sealing master killed 10 or so people, but in the end, the big man split open his chest with an axe, causing blood and organs to fall to the ground. The big man loudly laughed as he picked up the calamity spear and carried the 2 halves of the disaster sealing master's body as he walked to the side. The others picked up the corpses of the disaster sealing masters, and they not only ate others but also their own people. In an empty area, a disaster sealer was tied to a pillar. There were many people standing next to him, and a cold-looking young man held the disaster spear as he said coldly, "Tell me where you're from, and why can't I achieve the effect of absorbing natural disaster with this spear? If you tell me the truth, I'll let you go." The disaster sealing master's cloak had already been taken off, and there were traces of blood on his body. He was a decent-looking young man with a cold expression and did not say anything. The cold-looking young man coldly harumphed and looked at the person beside him. The person beside him walked up and vigorously whipped the disaster sealing master's body, causing his skin to split open and his clothes to be dyed red. The disaster sealing master looked like he was in pain, but he did not cry out and endured the pain. The person waved the whip and ferociously hit the disaster sealing master's body, causing a bloody wound to appear on the disaster sealing master's body. Moreover, the disaster sealing master was a powerful ninja. Pa, pa. Screams rang out as the demon sealer continuously lashed out with his whip. Every lash left a wound on the disaster sealer's body. In the end, the disaster sealer couldn't hold on any longer and died. Following this, his corpse was hung at the city gate, and a notice was issued stating that anyone who found anyone related to him would receive a great reward. Anyone who tried to hide anything would be killed. Why don't you keep running? A woman giving off an evil-looking aura stepped on the disaster sealing master's head as she condescendingly laughed. The disaster sealing master's hands and feet had already been chopped off, and blood continuously flowed out from his wound. His face was pale, and he did not reply. The evil-looking woman coldly harumphed and grabbed at the disaster's spear on the ground. She sent some of her power into it, but she found that it was not very useful. It seemed that its attributes did not match, and there was a resistance. Hurry up and tell me what secrets this spear holds. Why can't it absorb natural disasters? How can I use its power? Also, why did you condense the disaster pearl? If you tell me, I'll give you a quick death. The disaster sealing master coldly looked at the evil-looking woman and still did not say anything. The evil-looking woman looked slightly angry as she used the saber in her hand to cut off the disaster sealing master's flesh. Blood flowed out, and the intense pain caused the disaster sealing master to howl in pain. In the end, the disaster sealing master bled to death. Who knew how much of his flesh had been cut off, and in some places, his bones and organs could be seen. The scene was incredibly gory. The evil-looking woman looked at the corpse and unhappily harumphed before picking up the spear and studying it. She wanted to know why it could absorb natural disasters' power. Hurry and chase after him. He's the one who saved us. He has a terrifying treasure that can absorb natural disasters. If we kill him and take it, we won't have to fear natural disasters anymore. A young man shouted with a savage look on his face. There was a large group of people behind him, at least a few thousand of them. None of their cultivations were very weak, and they were even a bit stronger than ordinary soldiers. However, they looked like ordinary commoners, and they quickly chased after the disaster sealing master. Of course, if it was the disaster sealing master, there was no need for him to run. After all, there were 3 powerful people chasing after him in the sky, and he could only run forwards. At that moment, the group of people shot out arrows. Even though they did not deal much damage, they successfully bought some time. The 3 experts started to fight with the disaster sealing master, while the others supported from the side. Chapter 1766. After hearing about this, Zhao Fu looked quite furious. They had dared to do such a thing to Qin City's people, and it was clearly beneficial to them. As such, Zhao Fu immediately ordered all of the disaster bestowers to retreat. He gathered all of his ministers and told them that since they dared to do such a thing to Qin City, they would have to pay the price. Your Majesty, this minister believes that we should gather all of Qin City's experts and slaughter all of the factions that dared to act against the disaster bestowers. Only then will we be able to uphold Qin City's name and seek justice for those disaster bestowers, a general said as he stepped out. Your Majesty, right now we should focus on stabilizing the situation. If Qin City does such a thing, it will definitely cause chaos and make more enemies. It's best to deal with it later, a civil minister said as he stepped out. Your Majesty, those are your people, and they were cruelly killed by those people. Qin City didn't do anything and only resolved the disaster, which was beneficial to them. However, they didn't know how to repay his kindness and deserved to die, another general said as he stepped out. Your Majesty, we only lost tens of people. If a war breaks out because of this, the losses will be tens of thousands of times greater. Your Majesty, please think carefully before making a decision, a civil minister said as he stepped out. Zhao Fu frowned as he looked at the scene before him. They all had their own reasons, and they all made sense. Enough, Zhao Fu said with a cold expression. The people who were arguing immediately shut their mouths, and the hall became silent again. "We have made a decision, all of you can leave," Zhao Fu said, and the ministers all left the hall. However, a few important ministers stayed behind, which were Bai Qi, Li Si, and a few others. They didn't have much of an opinion on this matter, and no matter what decision Zhao Fu made, they would resolutely carry it out. Following this, some people from Eternal Night and Sword Sect came to the hall. Most of the people from Eternal Night were the 11 leaders, who were Lu Mei, Wang Ergu, Wu Qian, and some others. It was a faction that had been established by Qin a long time ago, even before Yongye. The person in charge of it was Qin's top swordsman, Gunia. Gunia was now dressed in white and had an iron sword strapped to his waist. His entire body gave off an incredibly sharp aura. It was like a peerless sword, causing people to not dare to take a step closer, as if they would be cut if they did. His current cultivation level was also at the Heaven Realm. Although this cultivation level was nothing in the Middle Region or the Heaven Realm, it was already a relatively strong cultivation level in the outer regions. More importantly, the sword Dao that Gunia had comprehended was also very terrifying. In this aspect, even Zhao Fu could not compare to him. This time, he wasn't alone. There were a few young men and women behind him. They all had swords at their waists, and their faces were ice-cold. "Greetings, Your Majesty." Gunia brought a few people to the main hall and led them to salute. Zhao Fu smiled. "Long time no see. Gunia, how has your sword Dao gone?" Gunia calmly replied, "The sword Dao that I've comprehended is nothing to Your Majesty. Your Majesty's power far surpasses ours." Zhao Fu lightly laughed and told them why he had called them here. "We have called you all here to exterminate all of the factions that killed the disaster assessors. This is the result of killing the disaster assessors in Qin." "Yes, Your Majesty." Everyone obeyed without hesitation. They were Zhao Fu's swords, and wherever they pointed, blood would dye the surrounding 100 kilometers and countless corpses would lie. After giving them the information about the factions, they turned and left. Zhao Fu summoned the disaster assessors who had returned. Out of the 120 people who had gone out, only 85 had returned, while 35 had died outside. The disaster assessors who had returned each brought back about 2 disaster pearls. Zhao Fu gave these disaster pearls to the talisman masters so that they could further modify them. Only then would they be able to unleash shocking power. At the same time, Qin's massacre began. Tents were set up in the wilderness, and they were made of animal skins and wood. They looked quite crude, and there were piles of bones around them. There were not only human bones but also other animal bones, making this place look quite terrifying. This was the Fang tribe, and it had 80,000 or so people. It was a fairly large tribe, and this tribe mainly ate meat. As such, they needed large amounts of meat every day. As such, they ate almost everything, mainly creatures with meat. This included wild beasts, humans, and even themselves. The Fang tribe was currently preparing to hold a small celebration in order to obtain a godly weapon, which was the disaster spear. They believed that with this spear, they would not have to fear any natural disasters in the future, and the disaster spear would be their holy item to protect their tribe. At the banquet, the ferocious-looking people happily ate meat and drank wine. However, they didn't just eat beast meat, they also ate human meat. There were roasted severed limbs on the table. The ugly big man was the leader of the Fang tribe, and he was sitting at the very top with a smile on his face. Next to him was the black disaster spear. In actuality, even if the disaster spear did not have any abilities, just because it was a legendary grade weapon, it had powerful disaster power, and it was an incredibly precious treasure. An equally ugly person smiled as he congratulated the big man. "Leader, you've obtained such a godly weapon today, and your strength has greatly increased. Now that you have obtained such a divine weapon, your strength has increased greatly." In the future, you will definitely unite all the tribes here and become our king." A Fang tribe member smiled as he said, "That's right, leader. This godly weapon has fallen from the heavens, which means that you've received the protection of the heavens. In the future, you'll definitely become the king of the tribe, and we're all willing to help you destroy the other tribes." Hearing this, the big man looked quite happy and called out, "Come, drink. Don't worry and follow me. You'll definitely have good days in the future." After saying this, the big man drank a large bowl of wine and picked up a human head from the table to eat. It was the disaster master's head, and it had been roasted. Its face was blurry, and it gave off a fragrant smell of meat. The ugly big man directly bit off the skull and started to eat the brain, looking incredibly delicious. He then started to eat the skin and flesh on the face, as well as the nose and mouth. This was a top-notch delicacy, and in the entire tribe, only the leader could enjoy it. Everyone else had their hands and feet, and some of the elderly could only eat some organs. If they were too old, they would not be of any use and would be directly eaten. Chapter 1767. There was a bright moon in the sky, and the bustling Tooth tribe became quiet again. Most of the people were asleep, and there were some people guarding the outer perimeter. A group of people also stealthily hid nearby. They were all wearing black hoods and looked like ghosts, causing people to feel a bit afraid. After looking around and confirming the situation, they started to carry out assassinations. Black figures appeared in front of the guards, and the daggers in their hands slit the guards' necks. The guards didn't even have time to make a sound before dying. After dealing with the guards, black figures continuously appeared and quickly entered the tents. Looking at the people sleeping soundly, the black figures did not show any mercy and cut open their throats, regardless of whether they were men or women, old or young. Blood continuously flew everywhere, and some of it even sprayed onto the tent. The stench of blood spread out, and some people felt that something was off. The tribe had become too quiet, and there was a dense stench of blood, so they rushed out of their tents. What they saw were people wearing black hoods, and the daggers and hidden blades in their hands were covered in blood. The tents were deathly silent, and there was blood flowing out of them. There was no need to say what had happened. Those people looked on in terror, not understanding what had happened. Just as they were about to cry out, black figures flew towards them, and before they could cry out, they were already dead. When the ugly man saw someone sneaking into his tent, he suddenly woke up. He punched the man and sent him flying. Then, he rushed out with his axe. Seeing this scene, he felt quite startled and did not understand what had happened. At that moment, hooded people surrounded the ugly big man. About 80% of the tribe's people had died, and the remaining 20% would not be able to live for long. The rest of the people were killing them. "Who are you?" The ugly big man furiously roared as he looked at those people. A beautiful and charming woman walked out and lightly laughed as she said, "You don't need to know who we are. You dared to kill our people and infuriated our majesty. We will now exterminate your entire family." The ugly big man immediately understood what this meant, and his heart sank. Those disaster sealing masters were from this faction. However, this faction was simply too terrifying. They had casually killed so many people. Their tribe could not resist at all, and the fiendish big man understood that he was not a match for them, so he immediately ran. However, in the end, he was unable to run and was captured by a few people. The ugly big man would not let him die so easily. The ugly big man spread out his arms and legs, and 4 thick iron nails pierced through his palms and ankles, nailing him to a pillar. The ugly big man looked incredibly pained as he struggled and loudly cursed at the people around him. One of the men sneered and stepped forward, pinching the ugly man's mouth. He used a pair of pliers to pull out the ugly man's tongue and pulled it out of his mouth. He then used a small knife to cut off the tongue, causing blood to flow out. The ugly man could no longer speak, and he let out muffled sounds of pain. No one paid attention to him, and the man started to peel off the man's skin bit by bit, revealing his blood-red muscles. That person was neither too fast nor too slow, and after peeling off the ugly big man's skin, a skinless muscular person appeared. The ugly big man continuously howled in pain. The people around him ignored him, causing him to continuously suffer until he died. The next day, people passed by and looked at the corpses on the ground, as well as the big man's corpse nailed to the pillar. They could not help but feel terror. Just who could do such a thing and be so cruel as to slaughter an entire tribe? At the same time, people with cold gazes and sharp swords at their waists, giving off sharp sword chi, appeared near a city. This city was called Ing Province City, and it was quite powerful. It had 200,000 or so people and 40,000 or so soldiers. The cold-looking young man was the young city lord of this place, and he was currently studying the disaster spear. Now he understood why. Those people had disaster energy within their bodies, which was why they could unleash its full power. It was a pity that they had not obtained much information. If they could find out how to create this spear and how to obtain the disaster attribute, that would be incredibly important to them, and it might allow their faction to rise. After all, there were natural disasters everywhere, and only with the ability to deal with natural disasters would they be able to easily subdue factions and commoners, increasing their reputation and allowing them to continue to grow stronger. However, that person was already dead, and they did not know if they would be able to capture anyone else to obtain any useful information. If they could capture another person, they would not be able to let him die so easily. An elderly man next to him, who was the old city lord, sighed and said, "I wonder what faction these people came from? I feel that they're quite extraordinary. I hope that we didn't offend any terrifying factions this time." The cold-looking young man gave a trace of confidence as he lightly laughed and said, "Father, don't worry. We're the strongest faction here, and no one dares to do anything to us. Also, Father, I'll let you see how Ing Province City develops under my leadership. Even though it's not very likely for us to establish a kingdom, it's still possible for us to become a feudal lord." The elderly man forced out a smile, but he still felt quite worried. He had seen many things, and even though his city was quite powerful here, it was nothing in front of those powerful factions. Suddenly, chaotic cries sounded out from outside, and a guard hurriedly rushed in and said in panic, "Old City Lord, a large number of swordsmen have come out of the city and are slaughtering our city." Hearing this, the elderly man and cold-looking young man hurriedly rushed out. They saw swordsmen holding sharp swords and expressionlessly swinging their swords as they slaughtered people. Some charged into houses and swung their swords, killing the people within, causing cries to sound out. Following this, everything calmed down, and the swordsmen coldly walked out with blood-stained swords. Some chased after the commoners, causing them to look terrified as they ran. The swordsmen leisurely followed behind and swung their swords, sending out sword lights that killed a commoner. The commoners tried to resist, but with their strength, they were completely useless in front of the swordsmen and were instantly killed. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.